When baby June wouldn't stop screaming at 37,000 feet, Evan Brooks, a widowed father drowning in judgment, was seconds from breaking. Then a stranger did the impossible. She reached across the aisle, took his daughter, and the crying stopped instantly. In that moment, something shifted. But Evan had no idea this woman would haunt him for 8 months, or that his daughter would remember her in a way that would change everything. Stay until the end and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The crying started somewhere over Nevada. At first it was manageable, the kind of fussing that Evan Brooks had learned to navigate with a pacifier, a bottle, or the gentle bounce he'd perfected during 8 months of solo fatherhood. He'd whispered soothing words, tried the songs he'd memorized from late-night YouTube videos, adjusted June's position against his chest, but nothing worked. And then the manageable became unbearable. June's screams tore through the cabin of Flight 847 like a siren, each wail sharper than the last. Her tiny face had turned crimson, her fists balled up against her tear-soaked cheeks, and no matter what Evan did, no matter how desperately he tried, she wouldn't stop. Row 14, Seat C. That's where Evan's world was collapsing. "Come on, sweetheart," he murmured, his voice cracking as he bounced her gently. "Please. Please, June, Daddy's got you. I've got you." But June didn't care that Daddy had her. June was 8 months old and knew only one thing. Something was wrong, and nothing was making it right. Sweat beaded along Evan's forehead, soaking into the collar of his wrinkled button-down shirt. He could feel it, the weight of every single pair of eyes in rows 10 through 20, maybe even beyond. The stares weren't subtle. They pressed into him like physical things, heavy with irritation, with judgment, with the unspoken accusation that he was the worst kind of parent, the kind who couldn't control his own child. A businessman in row 13 muttered something to his seatmate, not even bothering to lower his voice. Unbelievable. 2-hour flight, and we get stuck with that. A woman directly behind Evan sighed so loudly it could have been a theatrical performance. Someone should really do something. Evan's jaw tightened. His hands trembled as he tried another bottle, but June knocked it away, her screams intensifying. He wanted to disappear. He wanted to explain, to stand up and announce to the entire cabin that he was doing his best, that he'd been doing his best for 8 months, that he was a widower who'd learned everything about being a father from internet forums and trial by fire. But he didn't say anything. He just kept bouncing, kept whispering, kept failing. "Sir?" The voice was polite but firm. Evan looked up to find a flight attendant standing in the aisle, her smile so tight it looked like it might snap. Her name tag read Jessica, and her eyes said, "Fix this immediately or we'll have a problem." "Sir, is there anything I can get you? Maybe some water for the baby? Or—" "I've tried everything," Evan said, his voice barely audible over June's cries. I don't know what else to do." Jessica's smile didn't waver, but her tone dropped to something more pointed. "I understand, but we have other passengers who are trying to rest, and—" "I know," Evan's voice cracked. "I know. I'm trying." Jessica's expression softened just slightly. "I'm sure you are, but perhaps if you could just—" She didn't finish. June's scream hit a pitch that made people in the front rows turn around. A man in first class actually stood up to look, as if witnessing a crime. Evan felt his chest tighten, his vision blurred at the edges. He was 8 months into this. 8 months of diapers and bottles and sleepless nights and endless questions about whether he was doing any of it right. And this moment, right here, felt like proof that he wasn't, that he'd never been. That Madison had died and left him with a daughter he didn't know how to comfort, and everyone on this plane could see it. "I'm failing her," he thought. "I'm failing Madison. I'm failing June. I'm failing at everything. And then, give her to me." The voice cut through the chaos like a blade through silk, quiet, certain, undeniable. Evan's head snapped up. Standing in the aisle, directly across from him in row 14, Seat A, was a woman he'd barely noticed when he boarded. She was maybe 30, with dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail, exhausted eyes underscored by deep circles, and a paint-stained sweater that looked like it had seen better days. Beside her, in the window seat, a little girl, 4 years old maybe, slept soundly with her head against a rolled-up jacket. The woman's arms were already outstretched. What? Evan stammered. Give her to me, the woman repeated. Her voice was steady, but there was something raw in it, something that suggested she understood exactly how it felt to be where Evan was right now. Please. Evan hesitated. His arms instinctively tightened around June. This was a stranger, a complete stranger, and yet, I'm not, the woman's voice softened. I'm not trying to overstep. I know that look on your face. I've had that look. And sometimes, she glanced at the little girl sleeping beside her. Sometimes we need help, even from strangers. The businessman in row 13 muttered, Oh, for God's sake, just let her try. Evan's throat tightened. Every instinct told him to say no, to handle this himself, to prove he could. But June's cries were shredding him from the inside out, and the judgment in the cabin was suffocating, and this woman, this stranger with exhausted eyes, was offering him something he hadn't had in 8 months, a lifeline. Okay, he whispered. The woman stepped across the aisle, and Evan carefully transferred June into her arms. The moment he let go, he felt like he'd given up something vital, like admitting defeat in the most public way possible. But then something extraordinary happened. The woman cradled June against her chest, adjusting her weight with the kind of practiced ease that spoke of experience. She began to rock, gently, rhythmically, a motion so natural it looked like breathing. And then she started to hum. It wasn't a song Evan recognized. It was soft, lilting, almost mournful, a melody that seemed to come from some deep, ancient place. The woman's voice was barely above a whisper, but it filled the space around them like a warm blanket. And June stopped crying. It didn't happen gradually. It happened all at once, like someone had flipped a switch. Her screams cut off mid-wail, her tiny body going still in the stranger's arms. Her red, tear-streaked face turned toward the woman's chest, and her breathing began to even out. The cabin fell silent. Evan stared, his mouth slightly open, unable to process what he was seeing. Around them, passengers exchanged glances, some surprised, some relieved, some still annoyed but quietly satisfied that the noise had stopped. The woman kept humming, kept rocking. She didn't look at Evan. She didn't look at anyone. Her eyes were closed, her expression distant, like she was somewhere else entirely, and June, impossibly, miraculously, began to drift off to sleep. I don't... Evan's voice was hoarse. I don't understand. How did you... The woman opened her eyes, still rocking June gently. I didn't do anything special. She just needed a different rhythm, that's all. A different rhythm, Evan repeated numbly. Babies are like that sometimes. The woman's voice was quiet, almost sad. They get stuck in a loop, crying because they're crying, if that makes sense. Sometimes they just need someone to interrupt the pattern. Evan watched as June's eyelids fluttered, her tiny fists uncurling. I've been trying for 8 months to find the right rhythm. I thought I was getting better at it. You probably are. The woman glanced at him, and for the first time he saw something in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. This isn't about you being bad at it. This is just one of those moments. One of those moments, Evan echoed. He felt hollowed out, like someone had scooped everything from inside his chest and left only an aching emptiness. The woman studied him for a long moment. Then, still holding June, she said, Can I sit with you for a minute? Just until she's fully asleep. I don't want to disturb her by moving too much. Evan nodded, unable to speak. The woman carefully settled into the empty middle seat beside him, June still cradled in her arms. The little girl in the window seat, her daughter, Evan assumed, didn't stir. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The hum of the plane engines filled the silence, punctuated by the occasional murmur of conversation from other rows. The flight attendant, Jessica, walked past and gave Evan a small, relieved nod. Finally, the woman broke the silence. I'm Harper, by the way. Harper Lane. Evan Brooks. He swallowed hard. And that's June, my daughter. She's beautiful, Harper said softly, looking down at the sleeping baby. How old? 8 months. Evan's voice was barely above a whisper. 8 months and 12 days. Harper glanced at him, something flickering in her expression. You count the days. I count everything. Evan's laugh was hollow. Days, feedings, diaper changes, hours of sleep, hers and mine, though mostly hers because I don't get much. I count it all because if I don't, I feel like I'll lose track, like I'll mess something up. Harper was quiet for a moment, then, "You're doing this alone." It wasn't a question. "Yeah," Evan said. "Just me and June. Has been since—" He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "Since the beginning?" Harper's voice was gentle. Evan nodded. He didn't trust himself to say more. Harper shifted slightly, adjusting June in her arms. "That's Lily," she said, nodding toward the sleeping girl in the window seat. "My daughter. She's 4. And it's been just us for about 3.5 years now." "Her father?" "Left when she was 6 months old." Harper's voice was matter-of-fact, but there was an edge to it, something sharp and unhealed. Decided fatherhood wasn't for him. Haven't heard from him since. "I'm sorry," Evan said. "Don't be. We're better off." Harper paused. "But it's hard, isn't it? Doing it alone. Everyone tells you it gets easier, but they're lying. It just gets different." Evan felt something crack open in his chest, a small fissure in the wall he'd built around himself. "Nobody tells you about the judgment," he said quietly. "About how every time your kid cries in public, people look at you like you're failing, like you're the worst parent in the world." "Oh, they absolutely do that," Harper said, "especially to single parents. We're supposed to be superhuman, both mother and father, perfect and composed, never overwhelmed. And if we're not? If we crack? Well, then obviously we shouldn't have had kids in the first place." Evan looked at her, startled by the bitterness in her voice, and by how closely it mirrored his own feelings. "Yes, exactly that." Harper met his gaze. "I see you, Evan Brooks. I see you trying. I see you exhausted and scared and doing your best anyway. And I need you to know you're not failing. You're surviving. There's a difference." Evan's throat tightened. He looked away quickly, blinking hard against the sting in his eyes. "I don't feel like I'm surviving. I feel like I'm drowning." "Most days I do too." Harper's voice was so soft now that Evan almost missed it over the plane's engine. "But then I look at Lily and I realize we're both still here, still breathing, still trying, and that has to count for something." They fell into silence again, but this time it felt different, less empty, more full. Like two people who'd been shouting into the void had suddenly discovered they weren't alone. After a while, Evan said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "That song you were humming. What is it?" Harper's expression shifted, something painful crossing her face before she smoothed it away. "It's a lullaby my mother used to sing to me, and then I sang it to Lily when she was a baby. It's the only thing that would calm her down when she was colicky." "It's beautiful," Evan said. "Thank you." Harper looked down at June, who was now deeply asleep, her tiny mouth slightly open. "She reminds me of Lily at that age, the same little nose, the same way of curling her fists when she sleeps." Evan studied Harper's face. The exhaustion, yes, but also something else, a kind of bone-deep weariness that went beyond lack of sleep. "Are you okay?" he asked. The question seemed to catch Harper off guard. She blinked, and for a moment Evan thought she might brush it off with a polite deflection. But then her shoulders sagged slightly, and she said, "No, not really." "Do you want to talk about it?" Harper hesitated. Then, "My mother died 4 days ago." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and terrible. "Harper, I'm so sorry." "Pancreatic cancer," Harper continued, as if she needed to get the words out now that she'd started. "Diagnosed 6 months ago. They said she had a year, maybe. She lasted 5 months. Her voice cracked. "I thought I'd have more time. I thought—" She stopped, her breath hitching. Evan reached out slowly, carefully, and placed his hand over hers. "I'm sorry," he said again, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Harper looked down at his hand on hers. "We were flying back from the funeral. Her funeral. I had to bring Lily because there was no one to watch her, and I couldn't leave her behind, but she's too young to really understand what's happening. She keeps asking when Grandma Ruth is coming to visit again." "God," Evan breathed. "So when I saw you, When I saw the panic on your face and heard your baby crying, Harper's voice broke completely now. I don't know. I needed to do something good, something useful, because for the last 4 days I felt completely useless. I couldn't save my mother. I can't explain death to my 4-year-old, but maybe I could help a stranger with a crying baby. Evan's vision blurred. Harper. And it worked, she said, tears spilling down her cheeks now. It worked, and for just a minute I felt like maybe I wasn't completely broken. Evan didn't think. He just moved. He slid his free arm around Harper's shoulders and pulled her close, careful not to disturb June sleeping in her arms. Harper leaned into him, her body shaking with silent sobs. You're not broken, Evan whispered. You're grieving. There's a difference. Harper let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. You used my own words against me. They were good words. Evan tightened his arm around her. And they're true. For both of us. They stayed like that for a long time, two strangers holding each other together at 37,000 feet. A sleeping baby between them, while the plane carried them toward whatever came next. Eventually, Harper pulled back, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to fall apart on you. Don't apologize, Evan said. You held my daughter and saved me from a complete breakdown. I think you've earned the right to fall apart a little. Harper managed a small smile. Fair enough. They sat in comfortable silence for a few more minutes. Then Harper asked, What about you? You said you're doing this alone. Does that mean... Evan took a deep breath. This was the part he hated. The part where he had to say the words out loud and watch the other person's face change, watch the pity settle in. But Harper had been honest with him, had shared her grief. He owed her the same. My wife died, he said quietly. Minutes after June was born. Complications during delivery. They tried everything, but his voice caught. Madison never even got to hold her. She never got to see her open her eyes. Harper's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, Evan. So it's been just me and June since the beginning, Evan continued, the words coming faster now, like a dam breaking. I didn't know anything about babies. I'd never changed a diaper in my life. I had to learn everything, feeding schedules, sleep training, tummy time, all of it, while grieving my wife. And some days I wake up and I still can't believe she's gone, that I'm doing this without her, that June is going to grow up never knowing her mother. I'm so sorry, Harper whispered. Evan, I'm so sorry. Everyone says it gets easier, Evan said, echoing Harper's earlier words. But they're wrong. It just gets different. The grief changes shape, but it never leaves. And June, he looked down at his sleeping daughter, still cradled in Harper's arms. June is the only reason I keep going, because she needs me, because I'm all she has. She's lucky to have you, Harper said. I don't feel lucky. I feel terrified. Evan's voice dropped to barely a whisper. What if I'm not enough? What if I mess her up? What if I can't give her everything she needs because half of what she needs was supposed to come from Madison? Harper shifted June slightly, then reached out with her free hand to cup Evan's face. The gesture was so unexpected, so tender, that Evan froze. Listen to me, Harper said, her voice firm but kind. Your daughter is loved. She is cared for. She has a father who counts every day he gets with her, who tries so hard to do right by her that he shakes with the effort. That's not failing, Evan. That's the opposite of failing. Evan's eyes burned. You don't know that. You don't know if I'm doing any of this right. I know you're trying, Harper said, and I know that trying, really, truly trying, is the hardest part of being a parent, especially when you're alone, especially when you're grieving. She paused. June is 8 months old. That means you've kept her alive, kept her fed, kept her safe for 8 months, all by yourself, while carrying a grief that would break most people. That's not nothing, Evan. That's everything. Something inside Evan's chest gave way completely. He bent forward, his forehead coming to rest on Harper's shoulder, and let himself cry, really cry, for the first time since Madison's funeral. Harper held him with one arm while still cradling June with the other, and she didn't say anything else. She just let him break. When Evan finally pulled back, his face wet with tears, Harper was crying too. We're a mess, he said, his voice thick. We really are, Harper agreed. And then she laughed, a real laugh, surprised and genuine. And Evan found himself laughing too. Around them, the cabin had grown quieter. Most passengers had fallen asleep or were absorbed in their devices. The flight attendant walked past again, glanced at them, and smiled. A real smile this time, not the tight professional one from before. How much longer until we land? Evan asked, checking his watch. About 45 minutes, Harper said. We're somewhere over Idaho now, I think. Idaho, Evan repeated. Somewhere over Idaho? A stranger held my daughter and saved my life. Dramatic, Harper said, but her smile was soft. True, Evan countered. They fell into an easy conversation after that. Lighter topics, safer ground. Harper told him about Lily's obsession with dinosaurs. She can name 30 different species, but she can't remember to put her shoes away. Evan told her about June's newfound love of knocking over stacks of blocks. She cackles like a villain every time. They talked about sleepless nights and terrible children's shows and the strange isolation of solo parenting. It felt normal, easy, like talking to an old friend. At some point, June woke up, gently this time, without crying. She blinked up at Harper with wide, curious eyes, and Harper smiled down at her. Hello, sweet girl, Harper murmured. Did you have a nice nap? June reached up with one tiny hand and touched Harper's face. Harper's breath caught. She likes you, Evan said softly. I like her too, Harper whispered. She glanced at Evan. Do you want her back? In a minute, Evan said. If that's okay. You two seem comfortable. We do, Harper agreed. They stayed like that, June content in Harper's arms, Lily still sleeping peacefully in the window seat, Evan and Harper talking in low voices, until the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom announcing their descent into Seattle. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing in approximately 15 minutes. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Flight attendants, prepare for landing. Harper carefully handed June back to Evan. The baby fussed for a moment, then settled against her father's chest. Thank you, Evan said, for everything. I don't know how to... You don't have to thank me, Harper interrupted. Really? I do, though, Evan insisted. You didn't have to help. You could have ignored us. But you didn't. Harper reached into her bag and pulled out a crumpled receipt and a pen. She scribbled something on the back, then handed it to Evan. He looked down at it. An address, Rosewood Cafe, 412 Maple Street, Seattle, WA. What's this? He asked. My mother's favorite cafe, Harper said. She used to take Lily and me there every Saturday morning for muffins and hot chocolate. It was her place. And now, I guess it's mine. She met Evan's eyes. If you're ever in Seattle and you need, I don't know, coffee, conversation, a place where people won't judge you if your kid is loud, that's where I'll be. Evan stared at the address, his throat tight. Harper, No promises, Harper said quickly. No pressure, just if you want to, if you need to. The plane jolted slightly as it began its descent. Lily stirred in her seat, blinking awake. Mommy? She mumbled sleepily. Right here, baby, Harper said, turning to her daughter. We're almost home. Evan tucked the address into his wallet, his hands shaking slightly. Thank you, he said again. Harper looked back at him one last time, and her smile was sad and hopeful all at once. Take care of yourself, Evan Brooks. And take care of June. You too, Evan said. Take care of yourself and Lily. The plane descended through the clouds, and Seattle emerged below them, a sprawl of lights and water and green. The landing was smooth. Passengers began gathering their belongings, eager to disembark. Harper unbuckled Lily and helped her into her jacket. Evan secured June in her carrier, his daughter now calm and sleepy again. They moved into the aisle with the crowd, shuffling toward the exit. Evan wanted to say something more, wanted to find words that could capture what this chance encounter had meant to him. But the crowd was pressing forward, and Lily was tugging on Harper's hand, and the moment was slipping away. At the door of the plane, Harper turned back one last time. Their eyes met, and then she was gone, swept into the stream of travelers heading toward baggage claim. Evan stood there for a moment, June's carrier in his arms, the address burning a hole in his wallet. Rosewood Cafe, 412 Maple Street. He didn't know if he'd ever use it. Didn't know if he had the courage to show up at a stranger's cafe and try to recapture whatever strange magic had happened at 37,000 feet. But as he walked through the airport, June sleeping peacefully against his chest, he found himself hoping in a way he hadn't allowed himself to hope in 8 months. That maybe, somehow, their paths would cross again. That maybe the universe wasn't done with Evan Brooks and Harper Lane just yet. The address stayed in Evan's wallet for 3 days before he allowed himself to look at it again. Those 3 days were a blur of formula and diapers and the relentless routine that had become his entire world. He changed June, fed June, rocked June to sleep. He did laundry. He microwaved dinners he barely tasted. He stared at the ceiling at 2 a.m. while June slept in her crib, and he thought about a woman on a plane who had held his daughter like she was precious. On the 4th day, he pulled out the receipt while June napped, his hands trembling slightly as he unfolded it. The ink was smudged but still legible. Rosewood Cafe, 412 Maple Street. He typed the address into his phone. It was 17 minutes from his apartment. 17 minutes. He could drive there right now, walk in, and what? Evan set his phone down, his chest tight. What was he supposed to say? Hi, remember me? The guy whose baby you rescued? I know you were grieving your mother and probably said that thing about the cafe just to be nice, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, about you, about the way you looked at me, like I wasn't failing. He couldn't do it. It was too much, too desperate, too pathetic. The address went back into his wallet, tucked behind his driver's license, where he wouldn't have to see it every time he paid for groceries. But he couldn't stop thinking about her. Every night when he sang June to sleep, his voice rough and uncertain, he remembered Harper's lullaby, that soft, mournful melody that had cut through the chaos like a prayer. He found himself humming it sometimes without realizing, and June would go still in his arms, her eyes drifting closed. It was like Harper had left a piece of herself with them. 2 weeks became 3. 3 became 4. Evan went to work at the architecture firm where he'd been barely holding on since Madison died, sketched buildings he didn't care about, sat through meetings where he nodded at the right times and contributed nothing of substance. His boss, Richard, had been patient. Take all the time you need, Evan, we understand. But Evan could feel the patience wearing thin. He was drowning, and everyone could see it. At night, alone in his apartment with June sleeping in the next room, Evan would sometimes take out his phone and pull up the map to Rosewood Cafe. He'd stare at it for long minutes, his thumb hovering over the directions button, before closing the app and putting the phone away. No promises, Harper had said. No pressure. But what if he showed up and she didn't remember him? What if she'd helped dozens of desperate parents since then, and he was just another face in a crowd? What if she'd only given him that address out of pity, never expecting him to actually use it? Or worse, what if she did remember him, and she took one look at him standing in the doorway of her mother's favorite cafe and realized she'd made a terrible mistake by getting involved with a stranger's tragedy? 1 month became 2. June learned to pull herself up on furniture, her legs wobbling with the effort. She said "Dada" for the first time, or something close enough that Evan's heart nearly burst. She laughed at Peekaboo and cried when he left the room and fell asleep in his arms every single night to the lullaby Harper had hummed at 37,000 feet. And every single night, Evan thought about Seattle, about Maple Street, about a woman with exhausted eyes who had looked at him like he mattered. He started driving past the cafe on his way home from work. He didn't mean to at first. He'd taken a wrong turn, gotten confused by the GPS, and suddenly there it was. A small, warm-looking place with ivy growing up one side and a hand-painted sign that read Rosewood Cafe in elegant script. Through the window, he could see people sitting at small tables, reading newspapers, working on laptops. It looked peaceful, safe. The next day, he drove past it again, deliberately this time, and the day after that. It became a ritual, this driving past but never stopping. He'd slow down, crane his neck to peer through the windows, and tell himself tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. 3 months after the flight, Evan's father called. "How are you holding up, son?" his dad asked, his voice gruff with the particular kind of concern that men of his generation struggled to express directly. I'm fine, Evan lied, bouncing June on his hip while he tried to fold laundry with one hand. You don't sound fine. I'm tired. That's not the same thing as not fine. His father was quiet for a moment, then, Your mother and I want to come visit. We haven't seen June since the funeral, and that's not right. We should be there. Dad, you don't have to. We want to, his father interrupted. We should have come sooner. We didn't want to overwhelm you. But 3 months is long enough. We're booking a flight for next weekend. Evan closed his eyes. The last thing he wanted was his parents here, witnessing the full extent of his barely holding it together existence. But he also knew better than to argue with his father once he'd made up his mind. Okay, Evan said. Next weekend. Good, his father said. And Evan, it's okay to ask for help. You know that, right? Evan's throat tightened. Yeah, Dad, I know. But he didn't know. Not really. Because asking for help meant admitting he was failing, and admitting he was failing meant facing the possibility that he couldn't do this, that Madison had died and left their daughter with someone who wasn't capable of being enough. His parents arrived on a Friday evening, his mother immediately sweeping June into her arms with tears streaming down her face. Oh, look at you, she whispered, pressing kisses to June's chubby cheeks. You've gotten so big, so beautiful. You look just like your mama. Evan felt the familiar knife twist of grief in his chest. June did look like Madison, the same dark eyes, the same button nose. Every time he looked at his daughter, he saw his wife's ghost. His father clapped him on the shoulder, his grip firm. You look like hell, son. Thanks, Dad. Really feeling the love. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm trying to be honest. His father studied him with the same assessing look he'd used when Evan was a kid who'd fallen off his bike. When's the last time you ate a real meal or slept through the night? June doesn't sleep through the night, so neither do I, Evan said. That's how it works? That's how it works if you don't have help, his mother interjected, still holding June. But we're here now, so tonight your father and I are taking the baby monitor, and you're going to sleep in your own bed for 8 straight hours. Mom, I can't just... You can and you will, she said firmly. You're no good to this baby if you collapse from exhaustion, and you're teetering on the edge, sweetheart. Anyone can see it. Evan wanted to argue, wanted to insist he was fine, that he had everything under control. But the truth was, he was so tired he could barely see straight. The idea of sleeping, really sleeping, for more than 3 hours at a time, was almost enough to make him cry. Okay, he whispered. That night, Evan slept for 10 hours straight. When he woke up, sunlight was streaming through his bedroom window, and he could hear his mother singing to June in the living room. For the first time in 3 months, he felt almost human. Over the next few days, his parents took over the apartment with the gentle efficiency of people who'd raised children and knew exactly what needed to be done. His mother cooked real meals, casseroles and roasted chicken and vegetables that weren't from a can. His father fixed the leaky faucet Evan had been ignoring and assembled the high chair that had been sitting in a box for 2 months. And they watched June, played with her, fed her, changed her, giving Evan space to breathe. On Sunday afternoon, while his mother was giving June a bath, his father found Evan standing at the kitchen counter staring at nothing. You want to talk about it? His father asked. About what? Whatever's eating at you. And don't say it's nothing. I've known you your whole life, Evan. I can tell when something's on your mind. Evan's fingers found his wallet in his pocket, felt the outline of the receipt tucked inside. There was a woman, he said quietly. On the flight here, when I moved to Seattle. His father waited. June was crying, screaming, really. I couldn't calm her down, and everyone was staring, and I was about 2 seconds from a complete breakdown. Evan's voice was rough. And this woman, this stranger, she just stood up and took June from me. And June stopped crying immediately, like magic. Sounds like she had the touch, his father said. It was more than that. Evan pulled out his wallet, unfolded the receipt, and set it on the counter. She gave me this, the address of a cafe. She said if I ever needed coffee or conversation or a place where people wouldn't judge me, I could find her there. His father picked up the receipt, studied it. And have you? Found her there? No. Why not? Evan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Bob, because I'm terrified. Because I don't know what I'd even say to her. Because it's been 3 months and she probably doesn't even remember me, and showing up would be the most desperate, pathetic thing I could possibly do. His father set the receipt down carefully. Or, he said slowly, showing up would be the bravest thing you could do. Brave? Evan shook his head. There's nothing brave about showing up at a stranger's cafe because you're lonely. You're not just lonely, son. You're drowning. His father's voice was gentle but unyielding. And this woman threw you a lifeline. Maybe she didn't expect you to use it, or maybe she's been hoping you would, but you'll never know unless you go. What if she doesn't remember me? Then you get coffee and leave. What if she does remember you? Evan didn't have an answer for that. His father picked up the receipt again and pressed it into Evan's hand. Your mother and I are here until Wednesday. That gives you 3 more days of backup. If you're going to do this, if you're going to take a chance on something that might make your life a little less lonely, now's the time. That night, after his parents had gone to bed, Evan stood in June's room and watched her sleep. She was on her back, arms thrown over her head, her little chest rising and falling with each breath. She looked peaceful, safe, like she had no idea her father was falling apart. Your mom would know what to do, Evan whispered. She always knew what to do. And I'm making it up as I go, and I'm so scared I'm going to mess you up. June's eyes fluttered but didn't open. There's this woman, Evan continued, his voice barely audible. She helped us on the plane, and I can't stop thinking about her. About the way she looked at you, the way she looked at me, like we weren't broken, like we were just struggling, and struggling was okay. He reached down and gently touched June's hand. Her tiny fingers curled around his thumb. I don't know if your mom would want me to go, Evan said. I don't know if it's too soon, or if it's disrespectful, or if I'm just looking for someone to save me because I don't know how to save myself. He swallowed hard. But I think I'm going to try. I think I'm going to go to that cafe and see if she's there. And if she is, I don't know what happens then, but I have to try. June's grip on his thumb tightened slightly in her sleep, and Evan took it as permission. Monday morning, he told his parents he needed to run an errand. Take your time, his mother said, already settling onto the floor with June and a pile of soft blocks. We've got everything under control here. Evan drove to Rosewood Cafe with his hands shaking on the steering wheel. It was a crisp November morning, the kind where the air bit at your skin and your breath came out in small clouds. Maple Street was quiet, lined with trees that had dropped most of their leaves. The cafe sat on a corner, its ivy-covered walls looking exactly as they had through the car window during all those drive-bys Evan had done. He parked across the street and sat there for 15 minutes, working up the courage to get out of the car. This is insane, he thought. You're about to walk into a cafe and hope that a woman you met once 3 months ago happens to be there. This is absolutely insane. But then he remembered Harper's face, the exhaustion, yes, but also the kindness. The way she'd held June like she mattered. The way she'd told Evan he wasn't failing when he'd needed to hear it more than anything. He got out of the car. The bell above the door chimed softly as he walked into Rosewood Cafe. The inside was warm and smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Small tables were scattered throughout, most of them occupied by people typing on laptops or reading books. Soft indie music played from somewhere overhead. The walls were covered in local art, paintings and photographs that looked like they'd been hung with care. Behind the counter stood a middle-aged woman with gray-streaked hair and a kind smile. She looked up as Evan approached. "Morning," she said cheerfully. "What can I get you?" Evan's mouth went dry. He hadn't actually thought about what he'd say. "Coffee," he managed. "Black and, He hesitated. "Is Harper here?" The woman's eyebrows rose slightly. "Harper Lane?" "Yes, we met a few months ago and she told me about this place and I just thought..." Evan realized he was rambling and forced himself to stop. "Is she here?" The woman studied him for a moment, something calculating in her expression. Then she called over her shoulder toward a back room. "Harper, someone's here to see you!" Evan's heart launched itself into his throat. For several seconds, nothing happened. The indie music played. The espresso machine hissed. Evan's pulse hammered in his ears. And then Harper emerged from the back room, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked different than she had on the plane, better rested, though still tired in that bone-deep way that spoke of grief not yet healed. Her hair was down instead of in a ponytail, falling past her shoulders. She wore jeans and a faded green sweater with paint stains on the sleeves. Her eyes landed on Evan, and she froze. For a terrible moment, Evan was certain she didn't remember him, that he'd built this entire thing up in his head, and he was just another forgettable face from a forgettable flight. But then Harper's expression shifted, surprise giving way to something softer, something that might have been wonder. "Evan?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He couldn't speak, could barely breathe. All he could do was nod. Harper set down the dish towel and walked slowly toward the counter, her eyes never leaving his face. "You came." "I almost didn't," Evan admitted. "I've driven past this place about 50 times in the last 3 months. Today was the first time I actually stopped." Harper's laugh was soft and slightly disbelieving. "You've been driving past?" "Every day on my way home from work," Evan confessed. "I know, it's creepy. I'm sorry." "It's not creepy," Harper said quickly. I don't know what it is, but it's not creepy." She glanced at the woman behind the counter, who was watching this exchange with undisguised interest. "Maggie, can you handle things for a few minutes?" "Take your time," Maggie said, already grinning. Harper came around the counter and gestured toward a small table in the corner, away from the other customers. "Do you want to sit?" "Yeah," Evan said. "Yes. Please." They sat across from each other, the small table between them feeling both like a shield and a bridge. Harper folded her hands in her lap, and Evan noticed they were trembling slightly. "How's June?" Harper asked. "She's good. Great, actually. She's pulling herself up on furniture now, and she said Dada last week. Well, something that sounded like Dada." Evan felt himself smiling despite his nerves. "She's with my parents right now. They flew in from Michigan to help out for a few days." "That's good," Harper said. "You need help. Everyone does." "How's Lily?" Evan asked. Harper's face softened immediately. "She's in pre-K now, obsessed with dinosaurs and outer space. She asks about 1,000,000 questions a day, and I only know the answers to about 3 of them." She paused. "She talks about you sometimes, about the airplane man and the baby." Evan's chest tightened. "She remembers?" "She drew pictures of you for weeks after we got home," Harper said quietly. "I have about 20 of them on our refrigerator. Stick figures labeled Evan and June." Her eyes glistened. "I thought maybe I'd imagined how much that flight meant to me, how much meeting you meant. But Lily remembered too, so I knew it was real." "I thought about you every day," Evan said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "Every single day. The way you held June, the lullaby you sang, the things you said to me." He swallowed hard. "You made me feel like I wasn't failing, like I was just doing my best, and I needed that more than you could possibly know." Harper reached across the table and took his hand. Her palm was warm, her grip firm. "I'm glad you came," she whispered. "I hoped you would, but I didn't let myself believe you actually might." "Why not?" "Because I thought maybe I'd just been a distraction, a stranger who helped in a moment of crisis and then disappeared. I didn't think—" She stopped, her voice catching. "I didn't think you'd actually want to see me again." "Harper," Evan squeezed her hand. "You've been the only thing keeping me going for 3 months. Every time I sang June to sleep with your mother's lullaby, I thought of you. Every time I felt like I was drowning, I remembered what you said about surviving versus thriving. You saved me that day, and I needed you to know that." Harper's tears spilled over then, silent and unchecked. "My mom died thinking I was going to be alone forever," she said, her voice breaking. "She died worrying about me and Lily, about whether we'd be okay without her, and I couldn't tell her it would be okay because I didn't believe it myself." She looked up at Evan. "But then I met you, and for the first time since she got sick, I felt like maybe I could still do something that mattered, like maybe I wasn't completely useless." "You're not useless," Evan said fiercely. "God, Harper, you're the furthest thing from useless." They sat there, hands clasped across the table, while the cafe buzzed quietly around them. After a while, Harper wiped her eyes and managed a watery smile. "I'm sorry. I promised myself I wouldn't fall apart if you ever actually showed up." "Feel free to fall apart," Evan said. "I've done it in front of you. It's only fair." Harper laughed, the sound still thick with tears but genuine. "Fair enough." Maggie appeared beside their table with 2 mugs of coffee and a plate of muffins. "On the house," she said with a wink. "And Harper? Take the rest of the morning off. I've got things covered." "Maggie, you don't have to." "I want to," Maggie interrupted. "Now shoo. Go talk somewhere more private before I start crying and scare away all the customers." Harper looked at Evan. "There's a park a few blocks from here. Lily and I go there sometimes. Do you want to walk?" "I'd like that," Evan said. They left the cafe with their coffee, stepping out into the cool November air. The park was small but beautiful, a pocket of green space with a playground, a duck pond, and walking paths lined with benches. At this time of morning, it was mostly empty except for a few joggers and someone walking a dog. Harper led Evan to a bench overlooking the pond, and they sat side by side, their shoulders almost touching. "This was my mother's favorite spot," Harper said quietly. "She'd bring Lily here every Sunday afternoon, rain or shine. They'd feed the ducks stale bread. I know you're not supposed to, but try telling a 4-year-old that." She smiled sadly. "After she died, I couldn't come here for weeks. It hurt too much. But then one day Lily asked if we could go to Grandma's park, and I couldn't say no." "Is it still hard?" Evan asked. "Being here?" "Yes," Harper said, "but it's also comforting, like she's still here somehow even though she's not." She took a sip of her coffee. "Does it get easier? The grief?" Evan thought about Madison, about the way her absence was still a constant weight on his chest. "Not easier," he said finally. "Just different. Some days are okay. Some days I wake up and forget she's gone for about 30 seconds, and then reality crashes back in, and I have to learn how to breathe all over again." "How do you do it?" Harper's voice was small. "How do you keep going when it feels like the ground's been ripped out from under you?" "Honestly, I don't know. I just do. Because June needs me to. Because stopping isn't an option." Evan set his coffee down on the bench between them. "But it helps, having someone who understands, someone who doesn't look at me like I'm broken or pitiful, someone who just gets it." Harper turned to look at him, and her eyes were full of something Evan couldn't quite name. "I've been so alone," she whispered. "Even before my mom died, after Lily's father left, I've just been so alone. And then I met you. And for a few hours on that plane, I didn't feel alone anymore." "Me neither," Evan said. They sat in silence for a while, watching ducks glide across the pond. The sun had broken through the clouds, casting everything in pale gold light. Finally, Harper said, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why did you wait 3 months to come to the cafe?" Evan let out a long breath. "Fear, mostly. I was afraid you wouldn't remember me, afraid you'd think I was pathetic for showing up, afraid that—" He trailed off. "Afraid that what?" "Afraid that if I saw you again, I'd have to admit how much I needed this," Evan said quietly. "Needed you. Needed someone who understood. And admitting that felt like admitting I couldn't do it on my own. Like I was failing Madison somehow." Harper reached for his hand again. "Needing help doesn't mean you're failing her, Evan. It means you're human." "I know that logically," Evan said, "but knowing it and believing it are 2 different things." "Yeah," Harper agreed softly. "They are." A jogger passed by, and somewhere a dog barked. The moment stretched between them, comfortable and charged all at once. "What happens now?" Harper asked eventually. Evan looked at her, really looked at her, the exhaustion around her eyes, the paint stains on her sweater, the way she held herself like someone who'd learned to be strong because there was no other choice. "I'd like to see you again," he said. "If that's okay. I'd like to, I don't know, have coffee, talk, let our daughters meet properly. I'd like to not do this alone anymore, and I think maybe you'd like that too." Harper's smile was tremulous but real. "I would like that. Very much." "Then let's do it," Evan said. No more driving past, no more waiting. Let's just try. Try, Harper repeated, as if testing the word. Then she nodded. Okay, let's try. They exchanged phone numbers right there on the bench, Evan's hands still shaking slightly as he typed Harper's contact information into his phone. When he was done, he looked up to find her watching him with an expression that made his breath catch. What? He asked. Nothing, Harper said. I'm glad you came, Evan Brooks. I'm really, really glad. Me too, Evan said. They stayed at the park for another hour, talking about everything and nothing. Harper told him about the cafe, which her mother had left to her in the will. Evan told her about his job, about the buildings he designed that he didn't care about anymore. They talked about their daughters, about sleepless nights and terrible twos and the strange, overwhelming love that came with parenthood. And slowly, tentatively, they began to build something new, something neither of them had been looking for but both desperately needed. A friendship. A lifeline. A reason to hope that maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't have to survive this alone. When Evan returned to his apartment that afternoon, his mother took one look at his face and smiled. You went to see her, she said. It wasn't a question. Evan nodded, unable to keep the small smile from his lips. I did. And? And I'm seeing her again on Thursday. We're taking the girls to the aquarium. His mother pulled him into a hug, fierce and warm. Good, she whispered against his shoulder. It's about time you let someone in. That night, after his parents had gone to bed, Evan sat on the floor of June's room and watched her sleep. His phone was in his hand, Harper's contact information glowing on the screen. They'd texted 3 times since he'd left the park. Short messages, nothing profound, just thank you for today, and I'm glad we did this, and Lily won't stop asking when she gets to meet baby June. Simple words that felt like everything. I met someone, Evan whispered to his sleeping daughter. Well, I met her 3 months ago, but I saw her again today. Her name is Harper, and she has a little girl named Lily, and she understands what it's like to do this alone. He paused, his chest tight. I don't know what this is yet. I don't know if it's friendship or something more or just 2 broken people trying to survive, but I wanted you to know. I wanted your mom to know too, wherever she is. June stirred slightly, one tiny fist uncurling against the crib mattress. Evan's phone buzzed. A text from Harper. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about today. Thank you for being brave enough to show up. He typed back. Thank you for remembering me. Her response came quickly. I could never forget you. Evan stared at those words until they blurred, something warm and terrifying blooming in his chest. The next 3 days passed in a strange suspension between anticipation and fear. His parents flew back to Michigan on Wednesday morning, his mother making him promise to call every day and his father gripping his shoulder with wordless understanding. Evan returned to work, sat through meetings, sketched floor plans, and counted down the hours until Thursday. He picked Harper up at 11. She answered the door with Lily at her side, the little girl clutching a stuffed brachiosaurus and eyeing Evan with solemn curiosity. Are you the airplane man? Lily asked. Evan crouched down to her level. I am. And you must be Lily. Your mom told me all about you. She told me about you too, Lily said matter-of-factly. And about baby June. Where is she? In the car, Evan said. Do you want to meet her? Lily nodded eagerly and grabbed Harper's hand. Can we go now, Mommy? Harper met Evan's eyes over Lily's head, and her smile was nervous but genuine. Let's go. June was in her car seat in the back, chewing on a teething ring and babbling to herself. When Lily climbed in beside her and waved the stuffed dinosaur, June's face lit up with the kind of pure joy that only babies could manage. She likes me, Lily announced proudly. Of course she does, Harper said softly, buckling herself into the passenger seat. You're very likable. The drive to the aquarium was filled with Lily's chatter, questions about fish and octopi and whether sharks were really as scary as they looked in movies. Harper answered patiently, but Evan could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands twisted in her lap. At a red light, he reached over and briefly squeezed her hand. She looked at him, startled, and then her shoulders relaxed just slightly. Thank you, she mouthed. The aquarium was crowded with families and school groups, but Lily didn't seem to notice. She dragged them from exhibit to exhibit with the boundless energy of a 4-year-old on a mission, pressing her face against glass tanks and announcing facts about marine life with the confidence of a tiny professor. "Did you know," she said, pointing at a jellyfish, "that jellyfish don't have brains? My teacher told me. They just float around and sting things." "That's terrifying," Evan said seriously, and Lily giggled. Harper walked beside him, pushing June's stroller, and gradually the tension in her shoulders melted away. At the touch pool, where children could reach in and feel starfish and sea anemones, Lily convinced June to touch a starfish, guiding the baby's tiny hand with exaggerated gentleness. "Be careful, June," Lily whispered. "They're fragile." "She's amazing with her," Harper said quietly, watching her daughter. "Lily's always wanted a sibling. She asks me all the time if I can give her a baby brother or sister." "What do you tell her?" Evan asked. "That some families are small, and that's okay." Harper's voice was soft. "But it breaks my heart every time. She shouldn't have to be alone." "Neither should you," Evan said. Harper looked up at him, and something passed between them, understanding maybe, or recognition. The acknowledgement that they were both here, both trying, both terrified of what came next. They had lunch in the aquarium cafe, sharing fries while Lily colored on her paper placemat, and June gummed a piece of soft bread. The conversation came easier now, less stilted than it had been at the park. Harper told him about her mother's last days, about holding Ruth's hand while she slipped away. "She made me promise to keep living," Harper said, her eyes distant, "to not let grief stop me from being happy. And I promised, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to be happy when she's gone." "Maybe you don't have to be happy," Evan said carefully. "Maybe you just have to keep moving forward. And eventually, the happy moments start coming back. Not all at once, but in pieces." "Is that what happened for you?" Harper asked. Evan thought about the last 8 months, the endless nights, the crushing loneliness, the moments when he'd held June and felt nothing but terror. But he also thought about June's first smile, her first laugh, the way she reached for him when she was scared. "It's starting to," he admitted. Slowly. Very slowly. After lunch, they walked through the tropical fish exhibit, the dim lighting and blue glow creating an otherworldly atmosphere. Lily had fallen asleep in her stroller, exhausted from the morning's excitement, and June was drowsy in Evan's arms. Harper stopped in front of a massive tank filled with colorful reef fish, her reflection ghostly in the glass. "My mom brought me here when I was Lily's age," she said quietly. "I was obsessed with the clownfish. I made her take me back 3 times in 1 month." "Lily seems to have inherited that love," Evan said, nodding toward the sleeping girl. "She has my mom's eyes," Harper said. "Every time I look at her, I see Ruth looking back at me. Sometimes it's comforting, sometimes it's unbearable." She turned to face Evan. "Does it ever stop hurting? Seeing Madison and June?" "I don't know," Evan said honestly. "I hope so, but right now it's all I see. June has her nose, her smile, the same little dimple in her left cheek. It's like Madison is still here, but also gone, and I don't know how to reconcile those two things." Harper reached out and gently touched June's sleeping face. "She's beautiful, Evan. Madison would be so proud of you." Evan's throat closed. "I wish I could believe that." "Believe it," Harper said firmly, "because it's true. You're keeping her daughter safe and loved and alive. That's not nothing. That's everything." They stood there in the blue glow of the aquarium, 2 grieving parents and 2 sleeping children, and for the first time in 8 months, Evan felt something that might have been peace. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm. Harper would text in the morning, sometimes just a simple good morning, sometimes a photo of Lily doing something ridiculous. Evan would respond with pictures of June covered in breakfast cereal or tangled in a blanket. They'd meet at the park or the cafe or the children's museum, their daughters growing more comfortable with each other, their own conversations growing deeper. Harper told him about Lily's father, about the day he'd simply packed a bag and left without explanation. "He said he wasn't ready," she said bitterly. "As if anyone's ever ready for a screaming infant and no sleep and complete life upheaval. But you do it anyway because you have to." Evan told her about Madison's pregnancy. about the complications that had started early but seemed manageable until they suddenly weren't. The doctor said it was rare, he said. A 1 in a million thing. But that doesn't help, does it? Knowing it was rare doesn't bring her back. They talked about guilt, the guilt of surviving, of moving forward, of having moments of happiness that felt like betrayals. Harper admitted she sometimes resented her mother for dying and leaving her alone. Evan admitted he sometimes resented Madison for the same thing, and then hated himself for feeling it. "We're allowed to be angry," Harper said one afternoon, sitting on a blanket in the park while their daughters napped nearby. "Grief isn't just sadness. It's anger and guilt and confusion and 1,000 other things we're not supposed to admit to." "My therapist says the same thing," Evan said. Harper's eyebrows rose. "You're in therapy?" "Started 2 months after Madison died. My insurance covers it, and my boss basically mandated it after I fell asleep in a presentation." Evan picked at the grass. "I wasn't going to go. I thought I could handle it myself, but I couldn't." "Do you think I should go?" Harper asked quietly. "I think everyone should go," Evan said, "but especially people like us, people who are drowning and don't know how to ask for help." Harper was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Will you send me your therapist's information?" "Already texted it to you," Evan said, showing her his phone. Harper laughed, a real, genuine laugh that lit up her whole face. "You're very presumptuous, Evan Brooks." "I prefer to think of it as proactive," he said, grinning. As November turned to December, their meetings became more frequent. 3 times a week became 4, then 5. They fell into an easy partnership, taking turns watching both girls so the other could run errands or sleep or just have an hour of quiet. Harper started teaching Evan to cook real meals instead of relying on takeout. Evan helped Harper fix the broken toilet in her apartment and assemble a bookshelf she'd been avoiding for months. They were building something neither of them wanted to name. One evening in mid-December, Harper invited Evan and June over for dinner. It was snowing lightly, the first real snow of the season, and Lily was beside herself with excitement. "We have to build a snowman after dinner," she announced, already wearing her coat even though they were still inside. "A big one with a carrot nose and button eyes." "We'll see," Harper said, stirring pasta sauce on the stove. "It might be too dark by the time we finish eating." "But Mommy..." "Lily, I said we'll see." Lily's face crumpled, and for a moment Evan thought she might cry. But then June, who was sitting in a high chair that Harper kept specifically for their visits, let out a loud, joyful shriek and banged her hands on the tray. Lily's tears evaporated instantly. She ran over and started making faces at June, who responded with delighted giggles. "Crisis averted," Harper said quietly, smiling at Evan across the kitchen. "For now," Evan said. "Give it 10 minutes." They ate dinner at Harper's small dining table, Lily chattering between bites about her pre-K Christmas pageant and June making an absolute mess of her mashed sweet potatoes. Harper had made spaghetti with homemade sauce, my mom's recipe, she'd said, her voice catching slightly, and garlic bread and a salad. It felt domestic. Normal. Like something Evan had forgotten could exist. After dinner, they did build a snowman in Harper's small backyard, all 4 of them bundled in coats and scarves. Lily directed the operation with the seriousness of a general commanding troops, while June watched from Evan's arms, her eyes wide with wonder at the falling snow. "His name is Frosty Jr., Lily announced when they'd finished, "because he's the son of the original Frosty." "Of course he is," Harper said, brushing snow off Lily's hat. "Now let's get you inside before you turn into a snowman yourself." Inside they made hot chocolate, regular for the adults, mostly milk with a hint of chocolate for the girls. They sat on Harper's worn couch, Lily and June playing with blocks on the floor in front of them, and watched the snow continue to fall outside the window. "This is nice," Harper said softly. "Yeah," Evan agreed. "It is." Harper's head came to rest on his shoulder and Evan's breath caught. They'd touched before. Brief hugs, hands clasped across tables, the casual contact of 2 people growing comfortable with each other. But this felt different, more intimate, more real. Evan carefully put his arm around Harper's shoulders, and she melted into him with a sigh. "Is this okay?" he asked quietly. "More than okay," Harper whispered. They sat like that until Lily started yawning and June's eyes began to droop. Evan helped Harper get Lily into pajamas and teeth brushed, while June dozed in the portable crib Harper had set up in the living room. At the door, as Evan prepared to carry a sleeping June out to the car, Harper caught his sleeve. "Evan," she said, her voice uncertain, "can I ask you something?" "Always." "What is this?" She gestured between them. "What are we doing here?" Evan's heart hammered. He'd been asking himself the same question for weeks, too afraid to examine the answer too closely. "I don't know," he admitted. "What do you want it to be?" Harper's eyes searched his face. "I want it to be real," she said finally. "I want it to be more than two lonely people helping each other survive. But I'm also terrified because I don't know if I'm ready for more. I don't know if you're ready. I don't know if we're just looking for someone to fill the holes that got left behind." "I don't think that's what this is," Evan said carefully. I think I'm here because you see me. The real me. Not the grieving widower or the struggling single dad, but just me. And I think maybe I see the real you too. And what if the real us isn't enough?" Harper's voice was small. "What if we're both too broken?" Evan set June's car seat down and took both of Harper's hands in his. "I think we're exactly broken enough," he said. "I think maybe broken people understand each other in ways whole people never could." Harper's eyes filled with tears. "I can't lose someone else, Evan. I can't let myself care about you and then have you leave. I won't survive it." "I'm not going anywhere," Evan said firmly. "Harper, I drove past your cafe for 3 months because I was too scared to walk through the door. But I did it. I'm here. And I'm not leaving unless you tell me to." "Don't leave," Harper whispered. "Then I won't," Evan promised. Harper pulled him into a hug, fierce and desperate, and Evan held her like she was the only solid thing in a tilting world. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other together, while June slept peacefully nearby and snow fell softly outside. When they finally pulled apart, Harper wiped her eyes and laughed shakily. "We're a mess." "The best kind of mess," Evan said. He drove home through the snowy streets with June sleeping in the back seat and his heart feeling lighter than it had in 8 months. When he got home, he pulled out his phone and sent Harper a text. "Thank you for tonight, for everything, for seeing me." Her response came minutes later. "Thank you for showing up, for staying, for letting me see you too." And then a moment later, "I think I'm falling for you, Evan Brooks. Is that crazy?" Evan stared at the words, his pulse racing. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment before he finally typed, "If it is, then we're both crazy, because I'm falling for you too." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "What do we do now?" Evan smiled. "We keep moving forward. Together." "Together," Harper sent back. "I like the sound of that." That night, Evan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind spinning with possibilities and fears. He was falling for Harper Lane. He was falling for her daughter. He was building something new while still grieving something lost. And he had no idea if that was brave or foolish or both. At 3 a.m, June woke crying. Evan went to her room, lifted her from the crib, and settled into the rocking chair in the corner. As he rocked her, he found himself humming Harper's mother's lullaby, the one that had stopped June's crying all those months ago on the plane. And June, still half asleep, hummed along. Evan froze. June had never hummed before. She babbled and cooed and occasionally shrieked with joy, but she'd never made a sound like this, a soft, melodic humming that matched the rhythm of the lullaby perfectly. "June?" Evan whispered. "Can you do that again, sweetheart?" June's eyes were closed, but she hummed again, the same notes, the same gentle cadence. She'd remembered it. Somehow, impossibly, she'd remembered Harper's lullaby from 3 months ago. Evan's vision blurred. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and texted Harper. "June just hummed your mother's lullaby." She remembered it. The response came surprisingly fast for 3 a.m. "What? She's humming it right now, the same melody you sang on the plane. She remembers, Harper." A long pause. Then, "Can you send me a video?" Evan propped his phone on the changing table and hit record. June, still half asleep in his arms, hummed softly, that same mournful, beautiful melody that Harper had used to soothe her months ago. When the video ended, Evan sent it immediately. Harper's response was just 3 words. "I'm coming over." "Now?" "It's 3 a.m., Evan typed. "I don't care. I need to see her. I need to hear it in person. Please." Evan hesitated for only a moment. "Okay, come over." 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock on his door. Evan opened it to find Harper standing there in sweatpants and a jacket thrown over her pajamas, her hair a mess, her eyes wide and disbelieving. "Is she still awake?" Harper whispered. Evan nodded and led her to June's room. The baby was drowsy but not quite asleep, her eyes half open as Evan rocked her. Harper knelt beside the rocking chair, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch June's tiny foot. "Hi, sweet girl," Harper whispered. "Do you remember me?" June's eyes focused on Harper's face, and her little mouth curved into a sleepy smile. And then, softly, so softly, she started to hum again. Harper's hand flew to her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. "Oh my God," she breathed. "That's her lullaby. That's my mother's lullaby." "I know," Evan said quietly. Harper began to sing then, her voice cracked and tearful, but achingly beautiful. The words were in a language Evan didn't recognize, something old and lyrical, passed down through generations. And as Harper sang, June's eyes drifted closed, her humming fading into peaceful sleep. When the song ended, Harper collapsed against Evan's knee, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Evan set June carefully in her crib, then pulled Harper to her feet and into his arms. "She remembered," Harper choked out. "Evan, she remembered my mother's song. How is that possible? She was just a baby." "I don't know," Evan said, holding her tight. "But she did. And maybe that means your mother is still here somehow, still touching lives, still mattering." Harper clung to him, crying into his shoulder while June slept peacefully nearby. "My mom died thinking no one would remember her," she whispered, "thinking she'd be forgotten, but June remembered. This tiny baby who met her for 3 seconds on a plane remembered her song." "Your mother mattered," Evan said fiercely. "She mattered to you, to Lily, and now she matters to June too. That's not nothing, Harper. That's legacy." They stood there in the soft glow of June's nightlight, holding each other while shadows danced on the walls. Finally, Harper pulled back and looked up at Evan with red-rimmed eyes. "I love you," she said. The words came out raw and unplanned, like they'd been ripped from somewhere deep inside her. "I know it's too soon, and I know we're both still grieving, and I know this is probably the worst possible timing, but I love you, Evan Brooks. I love you and June, and I can't keep pretending I don't." Evan's world tilted. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might crack his ribs. "Harper, you don't have to say it back," Harper said quickly. "I just needed you to know. I needed to be honest because life is too short and too fragile to keep hiding how I feel." Evan cupped her face in his hands. "I love you too," he said, and the words felt like truth, like release, like finally stepping out of darkness into light. "I've been falling in love with you since the moment you stood up on that plane and reached for my daughter. Maybe before that. Maybe the second I saw you." Harper let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. "This is crazy." "Completely insane," Evan agreed. We've only known each other 3 months. Barely 3 months. We're both disasters." "Total disasters," Evan said, smiling now. "So what do we do?" Harper asked. Evan kissed her forehead, then her cheeks, then, gently, carefully, like she was something precious, her lips. "We keep moving forward," he whispered against her mouth. "Together. One day at a time. One coffee at a time. One hummed lullaby at a time." Harper kissed him back, her hands tangling in his hair, and it felt like coming home to a place he'd never been but had always been searching for. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Harper rested her forehead against his. "Lily's going to lose her mind," she said. "She's been asking when you and June are going to live with us." Evan laughed. "June points at your picture on my phone and says, 'Ma.'" Harper pulled back, her eyes wide. "She says what?" "Ma," Evan repeated. "Or something that sounds like it. She's been doing it for a week. I didn't know how to tell you. Fresh tears spilled down Harper's cheeks. I'm not her mother, Evan. Madison is. I know, Evan said gently, and June will know about Madison. She'll grow up hearing stories about her mother, seeing pictures, understanding where she came from. But Harper, children can have more than one person who loves them, more than one person who shows up for them. And if June wants to call you Ma someday, if that's what feels right to her. I would be honored, Harper finished, her voice breaking. God, I would be so honored. They moved to the living room so they wouldn't wake June, curling up together on Evan's worn couch. Harper texted her neighbor, the elderly woman who sometimes watched Lily in emergencies, to make sure everything was okay. Then she turned off her phone and settled against Evan's chest. Tell me about Madison, she said softly. I want to know about her, about who she was. So Evan told her. He told her about Madison's laugh, loud and unrestrained, the kind that made everyone around her laugh too. He told her about their first date, about the way Madison had ordered the spiciest thing on the menu and then spent the entire meal crying while insisting she was fine. He told her about the day Madison found out she was pregnant, about how they danced around their tiny apartment at 2 a.m. because they were going to be parents. And he told her about the end, about the hospital, about the doctors running, and Madison's hand going limp in his, about holding June for the first time while Madison never got the chance. Harper listened to all of it, tears streaming silently down her face. When Evan finished, she said, She sounds extraordinary. She was, Evan said, and I'll love her for the rest of my life. But, he hesitated. But? Harper prompted gently. But I think I can love her and love you too, Evan said. I think the heart has room for both grief and hope, for both remembering and moving forward. My mother used to say that love isn't finite, Harper said, that it doesn't run out or get used up. It just grows to fit whoever needs it. She looked up at Evan. I think she'd like you. I think she'd be happy that I found you. I think Madison would like you too, Evan said. I think she'd be grateful that June has you, that I have you. They fell asleep there on the couch, wrapped around each other like lifelines, while dawn slowly broke over Seattle and June slept peacefully in the next room. When Evan woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows and Harper was gone. For one terrifying moment, he thought he'd dreamed it all, the lullaby, the confession, the kiss. But then he saw the note on the coffee table, written in Harper's messy handwriting. Had to get back to Lily. Last night was real. I love you. Call me when you wake up. Evan picked up his phone and called immediately. Harper answered on the first ring. Hi, she said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Hi, Evan said back. So last night was real, Harper finished. Very real. I love you, Evan. I meant every word. I love you too, Evan said, and it felt easier this time, less terrifying. What happens now? Now, Harper laughed. Now we figure it out, together. Together, Evan echoed. And for the first time in 8 months, when he looked toward the future, Evan didn't just see survival, he saw possibility. The weeks leading up to Christmas were a careful dance of new routines and old wounds. Evan and Harper didn't rush into anything. They couldn't, not with 2 small children watching their every move, not with grief still sitting heavy on both their shoulders. But they also didn't pretend that something fundamental hadn't shifted between them. Harper started keeping a toothbrush at Evan's apartment. Evan kept a change of clothes at Harper's. They fell asleep on each other's couches after long evenings of dinner and bath time and story time, too exhausted to drive home but too content to want to leave. Lily asked questions constantly, her 4-year-old brain working overtime to understand this new configuration of their lives. Is Evan your boyfriend, Mommy? She asked one morning while Harper braided her hair. Harper's hands stilled. She met Evan's eyes across the kitchen. He was feeding June in the high chair, and saw her own uncertainty reflected back. Yes, Harper said carefully. Is that okay with you? Lily considered this with the seriousness she applied to everything. Does that mean June is going to be my sister? Not exactly, Harper said, but she could be like a sister. Someone who loves you and plays with you and is part of your family. I want a sister, Lily declared, and I want Evan to live here, and June too. Can they move in? Harper's breath caught. Sweetie, that's That's a big decision. Adults have to talk about things like that. But do you want them to? Lily pressed. Harper looked at Evan again, her heart in her throat. Yeah, she said softly. I do. Evan's eyes crinkled at the corners. Good, he mouthed. But wanting something and actually doing it were two different things. They were still learning each other's rhythms, still navigating the complicated territory of blending their broken pieces into something whole. There were arguments, small ones, usually about nothing important, but charged with all the fear and grief they were both carrying. Harper snapped at Evan when he rearranged her kitchen cabinets. Evan withdrew when Harper suggested he was being overprotective of June. Each time, they'd circle back to each other with apologies and explanations, unpacking the real issues underneath. Harper admitted she hated when people touched her things, because it reminded her of losing control when her mother died. Evan admitted he was terrified of letting anyone else make decisions about June because Madison hadn't been able to. We're going to mess this up sometimes, Harper said one night, lying in Evan's bed while both girls slept down the hall. We're going to hurt each other without meaning to. I know, Evan said, running his fingers through her hair. But we'll figure it out. That's what people do when they love each other. Is it? Harper's voice was small. Because the last person who loved me left, and the person before that died. So I'm not sure I know what healthy love actually looks like. Evan pulled her closer. Neither do I, he admitted. Madison and I were good together, but we were also young and didn't really know what we were doing. We were still figuring things out when she died. He paused. But I think maybe healthy love looks like this, like choosing to stay even when it's hard, like being honest about our damage instead of hiding it. Harper turned to face him, her eyes searching his in the darkness. I'm scared, Evan. I'm scared of how much I love you. I'm scared that if I let myself believe this is real, something will come along and destroy it. I'm scared too, Evan said. Every single day. But I'm more scared of not trying, of letting fear keep me from building something good with you. Harper kissed him then, soft and slow, and whispered against his lips, then let's be scared together. The first real test came 2 weeks before Christmas, when Lily got sick. It started as a simple cold, runny nose, slight fever, nothing alarming. But by the third day, her fever had spiked to 103, and she was crying that her throat hurt. Harper called Evan from the emergency room at 2 a.m, her voice shaking. They think it might be strep. They're running tests. But Evan, she's so little, and her fever won't break, and I can't lose anyone else. I can't. I'm coming, Evan said, already pulling on clothes. Where's June? With my neighbor. Mrs. Patterson took her when I had to rush out. But Evan, you don't have to. I'm coming, he repeated firmly. Text me which hospital. He arrived to find Harper pacing in the waiting room, her hair wild, still wearing the pajamas she'd thrown on hours earlier. The moment she saw him, she collapsed into his arms. They won't tell me anything, she sobbed. They just keep saying they're running tests, and she's crying for me, and they won't let me be with her because they're trying to get an IV in, and... Breathe, Evan said, holding her tight. Harper, breathe. Lily is going to be okay. Kids spike fevers all the time. The doctors know what they're doing. You don't know that, Harper said, pulling back to look at him with wild eyes. You don't know that she's going to be okay. My mother was supposed to be okay. The doctors said they caught it early, that she had time, and then 5 months later she was gone. So don't tell me Lily's going to be okay when you can't possibly know that. Evan's chest tightened. He'd never seen Harper like this, completely unraveled, all her careful composure shattered. You're right, he said quietly. I don't know for certain, but I know that you're not alone right now. I know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere, and whatever happens, we're going to face it together. Harper's face crumpled. I can't do this again, Evan. I can't sit in another hospital and wait for someone to tell me that someone I love is dying. I can't. Then it's a good thing I'm here to sit with you, Evan said. He guided her to a chair and sat beside her, keeping his arm around her shoulders. You don't have to do this alone, Harper. Not anymore. They waited for 2 hours. Evan texted Mrs. Patterson to check on June, bought terrible coffee from a vending machine, and held Harper's hand while she stared at nothing and trembled. Finally, a doctor emerged, a young woman with kind eyes and exhaustion written in every line of her face. "Miss Lane," she said, "Lily's going to be fine. It's strep throat, and we've started her on antibiotics. The fever should break within the next 12 hours. She's asking for you." Harper let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "She's okay?" "She's okay," the doctor confirmed. "You can see her now." Harper practically ran through the doors, Evan following close behind. Lily was in a hospital bed that looked far too big for her small body, an IV in her arm and her face pale, but her eyes brightened when she saw her mother. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "My throat hurts." "I know, baby. I know." Harper climbed carefully onto the bed and gathered Lily into her arms. "But you're going to be okay. The medicine is going to make you feel better." Lily's eyes found Evan standing in the doorway. "You came too?" "Of course I came," Evan said, moving closer. "You're important to me, Lily. When you're sick, I want to be here." "Like a dad?" Lily asked, her voice small and hopeful. The room went very still. Harper's eyes flew to Evan's, wide and uncertain. Evan knelt beside the bed so he was eye level with Lily. "I'm not your dad," he said gently. "Your dad is your dad, even if he's not around. But I care about you very much. And if you want me to be someone you can count on, someone who shows up when you need them, then yes, I can be like that." "I'd like that," Lily said, reaching for his hand with her small one. "I don't remember my dad, but I like you better anyway." Harper made a small, choked sound. Evan squeezed Lily's hand and felt something crack open in his chest, something painful and beautiful all at once. They stayed at the hospital until Lily was discharged that afternoon, her fever finally broken, antibiotics in hand. Evan drove them home while Harper sat in the back beside Lily's car seat, stroking her daughter's hair. Back at Harper's apartment, they found June with Mrs. Patterson, who'd fed her and changed her and was rocking her peacefully. "She's been an angel," Mrs. Patterson said, handing June to Evan. "How's our little Lily?" "She's going to be fine," Harper said, her voice thick with exhaustion. "Thank you so much for watching June. I don't know what we would have done." "Nonsense," Mrs. Patterson said, patting Harper's arm. "That's what neighbors are for. You two take care of each other now." After she left, Evan found Harper sitting on Lily's bedroom floor, watching her daughter sleep. He set June in her playpen and sat down beside Harper, their shoulders touching. "I lost it," Harper said quietly. "At the hospital. I completely lost it." "You were scared," Evan said. "That's not the same as losing it." "I said things about your wife, about not knowing if Lily would be okay. That wasn't fair to you." "Harper." Evan turned to face her. "You were terrified that you might lose your daughter. You're allowed to fall apart in that situation. You're allowed to say things that aren't perfectly rational or fair. That's what fear does to us." Harper's eyes filled with tears. "When my mom died, I swore I'd be stronger, that I wouldn't let grief control me anymore. But today proved I'm not strong at all. I'm just barely holding it together." "You are strong," Evan said firmly. "Do you know how I know? Because you got Lily to the hospital. You advocated for her. You stayed with her, even though being in that hospital was probably the hardest thing you've had to do since your mother died. That's not weakness, Harper. That's love making you brave, even when you're terrified." Harper turned into his arms, burying her face in his shoulder. "I don't want to be brave anymore. I'm so tired of being brave." "Then don't be," Evan said, holding her close. "Let me be brave for you for a while. Let me carry some of this." They stayed on Lily's floor until their legs went numb, holding each other while their daughters slept nearby. Eventually, Evan helped Harper to her feet and guided her to bed. He tucked her in like she was the child, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Stay," Harper whispered, catching his hand. "Please stay." So Evan climbed into bed beside her and pulled her against his chest. She fell asleep within minutes, her breathing evening out, her body finally relaxing. But Evan stayed awake for a long time, watching the shadows on the ceiling and thinking about what Lily had said. Like a dad? He wasn't Lily's father, would never be, not really, but he could be something. a presence, a constant, someone who showed up and stayed. The same way Harper was becoming something more than just a friend to June. They were building a family, strange and unconventional, and held together by shared grief and tentative hope. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like coming home. The next morning, Lily's fever was gone completely, and she bounced back with the resilience only children seem to possess. By evening, she was demanding chicken nuggets and wanting to watch dinosaur documentaries, as if the previous night's emergency room visit had never happened. "She's going to give me a heart attack before she's 5, Harper said, watching Lily chase June around the living room with the stuffed T-Rex. "Probably," Evan agreed. "But she's okay. That's what matters." Harper leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for last night. For coming. For staying. For not running away when I completely fell apart." "Where would I run to?" Evan asked. "You're my person, Harper. You and Lily. This is where I belong." Harper pulled back to look at him. "Your person?" "My person," Evan confirmed. "The one I call when things fall apart. The one I want to tell about my day. The one who makes everything feel less impossible." He paused. "Is that okay?" "It's more than okay," Harper said, her eyes bright, "because you're my person too." They kissed while their daughters played nearby, and it felt like a promise, not of perfection, but of presence, of showing up for each other even when things got hard. The following week, Evan took Harper and Lily to pick out a Christmas tree. They went to one of those lots where the trees were already cut, where families wandered between rows of firs and spruces trying to find the perfect one. Lily took her job very seriously, examining every tree with the intensity of a jeweler examining diamonds. "This one's too short," she'd announce. "This one's too skinny. This one smells weird." "They're all going to smell like pine, Lily," Harper said, laughing. "That's kind of the point." "But this one smells wrong," Lily insisted. Finally, after 45 minutes and at least 30 rejected trees, Lily found the one. It was slightly crooked and had a bald spot on one side, but Lily declared it perfect. "This is the best tree in the whole world," she said, hugging it. "Can we take it home?" "We can take it home," Evan confirmed, grinning at Harper over Lily's head. They strapped the tree to the roof of Evan's car and drove back to Harper's apartment, where they spent the evening decorating while June watched from her playpen, fascinated by the twinkling lights. Harper had boxes of ornaments from her childhood, and Evan had salvaged a few from the apartment he'd shared with Madison. "This was Madison's favorite," he said quietly, holding up a delicate glass snowflake. "She bought it the first Christmas we were together. I almost couldn't bear to look at it last year." Harper touched his arm gently. "Do you want to put it on the tree?" Evan nodded. He walked to the tree, their tree, with its crooked trunk and bald spot, and carefully hung the snowflake on a high branch where it caught the light. "I think she'd like this," he said. "Us. This weird little family we're building. I think she'd want June to be happy, and to be loved, and to have people who show up for her." "I think so too," Harper said softly. Lily, oblivious to the weight of the moment, hung ornaments with abandon, creating clusters of decorations in some spots and leaving others completely bare. When they finally finished, the tree looked absolutely chaotic, a jumble of colors and styles and memories that somehow worked. "It's perfect," Lily declared, stepping back to admire their work. "It really is," Harper agreed, sliding her hand into Evan's. That night, after Lily and June were in bed, Harper and Evan sat on the couch drinking hot chocolate and staring at the tree. The lights cast gentle shadows across the room, and the apartment smelled like pine and cinnamon. "I never thought I'd do this again," Harper said quietly. "Decorate a tree with someone. Build traditions. Let myself imagine a future that looked like more than just survival." "Me neither," Evan admitted. "After Madison died, I thought that was it for me. I'd raise June alone, and maybe someday she'd have a family of her own, but I'd just be the sad widower dad in the background." "You're not sad anymore," Harper observed. "No," Evan said, looking at her. "I'm not. I'm still grieving. I think I always will be, but I'm also happy. Because of you. Because of this." Harper set down her hot chocolate and shifted closer to him. "I want to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to really hear me." "Okay." Evan said, his heart rate picking up. I love you, Harper said. I'm in love with you, Evan Brooks. Not because you saved me, and not because I needed someone to fill a hole in my life. I love you because of who you are. Because you're kind and patient, and you show up even when things are hard. Because you love your daughter fiercely, and you've made space in your heart for mine. Because when I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in years. Evan's throat closed. Harper, I'm not done, she said, a smile playing at her lips. I know we're still figuring this out. I know we both have baggage and trauma and days where we're going to fall apart, but I also know that I want to build a life with you. Not someday. Not eventually. Now. I want us to be a family, messy and imperfect, and held together with duct tape and hope, but a family nonetheless. Are you asking me to move in? Evan asked, his voice rough with emotion. I'm asking you to build something with me, Harper said. Whether that means you move here, or I move there, or we find somewhere new together, I don't care. I just know that I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to navigate the hard stuff together. I want to raise our daughters together and give them the family they deserve. Evan pulled her into his lap, holding her face in his hands. Yes, he said. Yes to all of it. Yes to building a life together. Yes to being a family. Yes to every messy, imperfect, beautiful moment of this. Harper kissed him with her whole heart, and Evan kissed her back with the same intensity. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Harper laughed through her tears. Lily's gonna lose her mind, she said. She's been asking when you're moving in since the day we met you. June points at your picture and says, Ma, Evan reminded her. I think they've been planning this longer than we have. Smart kids, Harper said. The smartest, Evan agreed. They stayed up late that night making plans. They decided Harper's apartment was too small for all of them, and Evan's wasn't much better. They'd start looking for a new place in January, something with enough bedrooms for everyone, with a yard where the girls could play. They talked about logistics and finances and how they'd tell their families. But mostly, they talked about the future with something neither of them had felt in a long time: excitement. The next day, they sat both girls down to tell them the news. Lily was, as predicted, ecstatic. You're going to live with us? She shrieked, launching herself at Evan. Forever and ever? Forever and ever, Evan confirmed, catching her. And June, too? And June, too. Lily turned to June, who was sitting in Harper's lap looking confused but happy. We're going to be sisters, she announced. Real sisters. We're going to share a room and play together every single day. June reached for Lily, babbling something that might have been agreement. Harper caught Evan's eye across the room, and they shared a smile that felt like a secret language. The language of two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and decided to build something beautiful from the broken pieces. That afternoon, Evan started packing up his apartment. It wasn't much. He'd moved to Seattle with almost nothing, had accumulated even less in the months since. But as he packed Madison's pictures carefully into boxes, he found himself talking to her. I hope this is okay, he said quietly, wrapping a photo of her holding her positive pregnancy test in bubble wrap. I hope you'd understand. Harper isn't trying to replace you. No one could. But June needs more than just me, and I need more than just grief to hold on to. I think you'd like Harper. I think you'd be grateful that June has her. The apartment stayed silent, but Evan felt something loosen in his chest. Permission, maybe. Or just the understanding that loving Harper didn't mean loving Madison less. That the heart could hold both, could expand to fit all the love and loss and hope that life required. On Christmas Eve, they had dinner at Harper's apartment, their last Christmas in this space before they moved somewhere new together. Harper made her mother's lasagna recipe, and Evan contributed store-bought garlic bread and a pie that was slightly burnt around the edges. It's perfect, Harper said, kissing his cheek. After dinner, they let the girls open one present each. Lily got a new dinosaur book, and June got a soft doll that she immediately tried to eat. They sang carols, badly, but with enthusiasm, and drank hot chocolate and watched the tree lights twinkle. At bedtime, Evan helped Harper put both girls down. They tucked Lily in together, and she insisted on hugging both of them goodnight. I love you, Mommy, she said, squeezing Harper tight. Then she turned to Evan. I love you too, Evan. Thank you for being like a dad. Evan's eyes burned. I love you too, Lily. Thank you for letting me be part of your family. In June's temporary room, Harper's office with a crib squeezed in, Evan rocked his daughter while Harper leaned against the doorframe watching. June's eyes were already drooping, her thumb in her mouth. Ma, she said sleepily, reaching toward Harper. Harper's breath caught. She moved closer, touching June's cheek. Hi, sweet girl. Are you ready for sleep? June reached for her and Evan carefully transferred the baby into Harper's arms. Harper settled into the rocking chair and began to hum. That same lullaby from the plane, her mother's lullaby, the one June had somehow remembered. As Harper sang, June's eyes drifted closed, and Evan watched the two most important people in his life hold each other in the soft glow of the nightlight. When June was fully asleep, Harper set her in the crib and turned to find Evan watching her with tears on his cheeks. What? She whispered. Nothing, Evan said. Everything. I can't believe this is my life now, that I get to have this. Have all of this. Harper took his hand and led him out of the room, closing the door softly behind them. In the hallway, she pulled him close and kissed him gently. This is just the beginning, she whispered. We have so much more ahead of us. I know, Evan said. And for the first time since Madison died, I'm not terrified of the future. I'm excited for it. They stood there in the quiet hallway, holding each other while their daughters slept peacefully nearby, while snow began to fall outside the windows, while the world kept turning and they kept healing one moment at a time. Downstairs, a car drove past, playing Christmas music. In the apartment next door, Mrs. Patterson's television murmured softly. Somewhere in the city, other families were celebrating, other people were grieving, other hearts were breaking and mending and learning to hope again. But in Harper's small apartment with its crooked Christmas tree and mismatched ornaments and rooms that would soon be empty as they moved toward something new, Evan Brooks and Harper Lane held each other and understood something fundamental. They had survived the worst. They had walked through fire and come out the other side scarred but still standing. And now, finally, they were ready to do more than just survive. They were ready to live. January came with rain and house hunting and the strange, exhilarating chaos of merging two households into one. Evan and Harper spent weekends driving around Seattle with both girls in the back seat, looking at places that were too expensive or too small, or in neighborhoods that didn't feel right. June had learned to say no and used it liberally. Lily narrated every house tour like a real estate critic. This kitchen is too dark, she'd announce. And where would we put the Christmas tree? It has to be by the window so everyone can see it. By the third week of January, they'd looked at 17 houses and were starting to lose hope. Then their realtor called about a place in Ballard, a 3-bedroom craftsman with a backyard and a fireplace, and enough space for everyone to breathe. The moment they walked through the door, Lily gasped. This is it, Mommy. This is our house. Harper looked at Evan, eyebrows raised. She said the same thing about the tree. And she was right about the tree, Evan pointed out. The house was perfect in that imperfect way. Hardwood floors that needed refinishing, a kitchen that was functional but dated, a back porch that tilted slightly to one side. But it had light pouring through every window, and a yard with a maple tree perfect for climbing, and 2 bedrooms upstairs for the girls, plus a master bedroom on the main floor. We could make the attic into an office, Harper said, already planning, and the dining room is big enough for both girls to do art projects without destroying everything. There's space in the garage for my drafting table, Evan added, and the backyard is fenced. June can play outside without me having a heart attack every 5 seconds. They put in an offer that night. 3 days later, it was accepted. The morning they signed the papers, Harper's hand shook so badly she could barely hold the pen. Evan covered her hand with his, steadying it. This is real, she whispered. We're really doing this. We're really doing this, Evan confirmed. The realtor smiled at them kindly. How long have you two been together? Harper and Evan looked at each other. 4 months, Harper said. Give or take. The realtor's eyebrows rose slightly, but she recovered quickly. Well, congratulations. I hope you'll be very happy here. After the signing, they drove to the house, their house, and sat in the car just staring at it. June was asleep in her car seat, and Lily was singing softly to herself in the back. My mother would have loved this place, Harper said quietly. She always talked about wanting a house with a big kitchen and a yard. She never got it. She spent her whole life in apartments. Then we'll fill it with the things she loved, Evan said. We'll plant her favorite flowers in the garden. We'll make her recipes in the kitchen. We'll make sure Lily knows that her grandmother's dreams didn't die with her. Harper turned to him, tears streaming down her face. How did I get so lucky? How did I get you? A screaming baby on an airplane, Evan said, smiling through his own tears. Best worst flight of my life. They moved in 3 weeks later on a sunny Saturday in February. Evan's parents flew out to help, and Mrs. Patterson supervised from Harper's porch rocker, which she'd insisted they take because every home needs a proper front porch rocker. Friends from the cafe showed up with pizza and beer and helped carry boxes up the front steps. By evening, the house was full of half-unpacked boxes and mismatched furniture and the beautiful chaos of a life being built. Evan's father assembled cribs and bed frames while his mother unpacked the kitchen with Harper, the two women falling into an easy rhythm of conversation. He's different with you, Evan's mother said quietly, arranging plates in the cabinet. My son, he's lighter, like he's finally breathing again. Harper set down a stack of bowls. He's changed me too. I didn't think I'd ever feel safe enough to love someone again. But with Evan, it doesn't feel scary. It just feels right. That's how it should be, Evan's mother said. Love shouldn't be complicated. It should feel like coming home. It does, Harper said, every single day. That night, after everyone had left and both girls were asleep in their new shared bedroom, Lily had insisted they couldn't possibly sleep in separate rooms. Evan and Harper stood in the empty living room surrounded by boxes. We need furniture, Harper said, laughing. We need a lot of things, Evan agreed, but we have time. Harper walked to the window and looked out at their street, quiet and tree-lined, with houses that had lights glowing in windows, and families inside living their lives. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, she admitted, for the other shoe to drop. It feels too good to be real. Evan came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. It's real. And sometimes good things happen to people who've been through hell. Sometimes we get second chances. Do you ever feel guilty? Harper asked quietly. About being happy? I do. Sometimes I'll be laughing at something Lily said, or kissing you, or just feeling content, and then I'll remember my mother is dead, and I'll feel like I'm betraying her by moving on. All the time, Evan admitted. I feel guilty every single day. Guilty that I'm falling in love again when Madison never got that chance. Guilty that June is going to grow up calling you Ma when she never knew her real mother. Guilty that I'm building this beautiful life on top of so much loss. So what do we do with that? Harper asked. We hold it, Evan said. We acknowledge it. We let ourselves feel guilty sometimes because that's part of grief. But we don't let it stop us from living. Because I think the people we lost would want us to be happy, would want us to love again and build new families and find joy even after tragedy. Harper turned in his arms to face him. My mother's last words to me were, find someone who stays. She made me promise. And I thought she meant romantically, but now I think she meant something bigger. Find people who stay. Build a life with people who don't run when things get hard. I'm not going anywhere, Evan said. I know, Harper whispered. That's why I love you. They kissed in their empty living room while cardboard boxes cast long shadows and the house settled around them with creaks and sighs. Outside, rain began to fall, the gentle Seattle rain that Harper had grown up with, that Evan had learned to love. The sound of it on the roof was soothing, like the house itself was welcoming them home. The next few weeks were a blur of unpacking and organizing and learning how to live together. They discovered Harper was a morning person who woke with the sun, while Evan needed coffee before he could form coherent sentences. They learned that Lily was a neat freak who lined up her toys with military precision, while June was a tiny tornado who destroyed everything she touched. They figured out a system for groceries and laundry and bedtimes that mostly worked, and when it didn't, they adjusted. They had their first real fight on a Tuesday in late February. It started with something stupid. Evan had forgotten to pick up milk on his way home from work, which meant there was nothing for June's bottle in the morning. Harper snapped at him about being irresponsible. Evan snapped back that she could have picked up milk herself if it was so important. The argument escalated until they were both saying things they didn't mean, dredging up old hurts and insecurities. "You're not their father, Evan," Harper said, her voice cold. "You don't get to make decisions about what Lily needs without consulting me." The words hit Evan like a physical blow. "Right," he said quietly. "Because I'm just the guy who lives here, not actually family." Harper's face crumpled immediately. "I didn't mean that." "Yes, you did," Evan said. "And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm overstepping. Maybe I should just focus on June and let you handle Lily, and we can be roommates who share a bed." Evan, but he was already walking away, grabbing his keys and heading for the door. He drove aimlessly for an hour, his hands shaking on the steering wheel, his chest tight with hurt and anger. He ended up at a park he'd never been to before, sitting on a bench in the dark while rain soaked through his jacket. His phone buzzed. A text from Harper. "I'm sorry, please come home. We need to talk." Another buzz. "I didn't mean what I said. You are their father, both of them. I was just scared and I lashed out." And another, "Please, I can't lose you over something this stupid." Evan stared at the messages for a long time. Part of him wanted to stay gone, to make her worry, to prove some petty point. But that wasn't who he wanted to be. He'd promised to stay, to work through the hard stuff, to not run when things got difficult. He drove home. Harper was sitting on the front porch steps when he pulled up, wrapped in a blanket despite the rain, her eyes red from crying. The moment she saw him, she stood up. "I'm sorry," she said before he could say anything. "I'm so sorry. What I said was cruel and wrong, and I didn't mean it. You are Lily's father, not biologically, but in every way that matters. You show up for her, you love her, you discipline her when she needs it, and comfort her when she's scared. That's what fathers do. That's what you do." Evan climbed the steps slowly. "You hurt me, Harper. You made me feel like I don't belong in my own family." "I know," Harper said, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "And I'm sorry. I was overwhelmed and tired, and instead of communicating like an adult, I lashed out at the person I love most. It won't happen again." "It will, though," Evan said. "We're going to hurt each other sometimes. We're going to say things we don't mean. That's part of being in a relationship." "So what do we do?" Harper asked. "We forgive each other," Evan said. "We talk instead of fighting. We remember that we're on the same team." He pulled her close, and she collapsed against him. "I'm sorry, too. I should have picked up the milk, and I should have stayed instead of running away." "We're both learning," Harper said against his chest. "Yeah," Evan agreed. "We are." They went inside together, checked on the girls, both asleep, thankfully unaware of their parents' fight, and then sat at the kitchen table with tea and talked for hours. They established rules for fighting. No bringing up old wounds, no running away, no going to bed angry. They talked about their triggers and fears, and the ways they needed to support each other. "When I said you're not their father, what I meant was, I'm scared of losing control," Harper admitted. "After my mom died, and after Lily's dad left, I've been the only one making decisions, the only one responsible. And now there's you, and you're making decisions too, and that's good, but it's also terrifying because what if you decide being a father is too hard and you leave?" "I'm not leaving," Evan said firmly. "Harper, I bought a house with you. I merged my life with yours. I love your daughter like she's my own. I'm not going anywhere." "I know that logically," Harper said, "but trauma isn't logical." "No," Evan agreed. "It's not." They went to bed that night wrapped around each other, and Evan felt closer to Harper than he ever had, because they'd fought and hurt each other and come back together stronger, because they'd chosen each other even when it was hard. March brought June's first birthday. Harper insisted on throwing a party. Nothing huge, just family and a few friends from the cafe. Evan's parents flew out again, and Harper's aunt drove up from Portland. Mrs. Patterson made her famous chocolate cake, and Lily helped Harper decorate with homemade banners that said, "Happy Birthday, June," in crayon. June, oblivious to all the fuss, spent the party eating cake with her hands and laughing every time Lily made silly faces at her. When it came time for presents, Lily helped June open each one with exaggerated excitement. "Look, June! It's a stuffed elephant! Do you like elephants? I like elephants!" Evan watched his daughter who was somehow already a year old, who was walking and babbling and developing a personality that was entirely her own, and felt his chest tighten with love and grief in equal measure. Madison should have been here, should have seen their daughter blow out her first birthday candle, should have laughed at the cake-covered face, should have been part of this. Harper appeared at his side, sliding her hand into his. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," Evan said, "just thinking about Madison, wishing she could see this." "Maybe she can," Harper said. "Maybe she's here in some way we can't understand. Maybe she's in June's smile, or in the way she laughs, or in the love that fills this house." Evan turned to look at her. "Do you really believe that?" "I don't know," Harper admitted, "but I want to. I want to believe my mother is still here somehow, watching Lily grow up. That death isn't the end of love." "I hope you're right," Evan said. That evening, after everyone had left and the girls were in bed, Evan found an old video on his phone, one of the last he'd taken of Madison before she died. She was 8 months pregnant, standing in their old kitchen, laughing about something he couldn't remember now. Her hand was on her belly, and she looked so happy, so alive, so full of hope for the future. Harper found him sitting on their bedroom floor, tears streaming down his face as he watched the video on loop. "Oh, Evan," she said softly, sitting beside him. "I'm forgetting her," Evan said, his voice broken. "I'm forgetting what her voice sounded like, and the way she hummed when she cooked. And I'm terrified that one day I'll forget everything and it'll be like she never existed." "She'll always exist," Harper said gently. "She exists in June. She exists in your memories. She exists in the life you built together, even if that life was cut short." She paused. "And Evan, falling in love with me doesn't mean forgetting Madison. Your heart is big enough for both of us." "Is it?" Evan asked. "Because some days I feel like loving you is a betrayal, like I'm choosing happiness over honoring her memory." Harper took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "Madison gave you June. She gave you a daughter who needs you to be whole and happy, not trapped in grief forever. Loving me, building this life, that's not betraying her. That's honoring the love she had for you by refusing to let tragedy be the end of your story." Evan kissed her then, desperate and grateful and still grieving but also healing. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I love you so much it scares me." "Good," Harper said, "because I love you too. Scary amounts." They stayed on the bedroom floor until late into the night, Evan showing Harper videos of Madison, telling stories about their life together. Harper listened to all of it without jealousy or discomfort, just with the quiet understanding of someone who knew that love didn't end with death. "She was beautiful," Harper said, watching a video of Madison dancing in their living room. "And she had a terrible sense of rhythm." Evan laughed through his tears. "She really did. She'd dance anyway, though. She didn't care who was watching." "I would have liked her," Harper said. "She would have liked you too," Evan said. "She would have been grateful that you love our daughter, that you love me." "I do," Harper whispered. "I really do." April brought warmth and cherry blossoms and a phone call that changed everything. Harper's phone rang on a Wednesday afternoon while she was at the cafe. The number was unfamiliar, but she answered anyway. "Is this Harper Lane?" a man's voice asked. "Yes? Who's this?" "My name is David Chen. I'm calling on behalf of your daughter's father, James Walker." Harper's blood ran cold. She stepped outside the cafe, her hand shaking. "What do you want?" "Mr. Walker would like to arrange a meeting with you regarding Lily. He's expressed interest in establishing a relationship with his daughter." "He left when she was 6 months old," Harper said, her voice tight. "He hasn't contacted us in over 3 years. He doesn't get to just show up now." "Mr. Walker acknowledges his past mistakes and would like the opportunity to make amends. If you're willing to meet—" "I'm not," Harper said flatly. "Tell James that Lily has a family. She has people who show up for her every single day. She doesn't need someone who abandoned her." She hung up before the lawyer could respond, her whole body trembling with rage and fear. She called Evan immediately. "He wants to see Lily," she said when Evan answered. "James, after 3 years of nothing, he suddenly wants to be a father." "Okay," Evan said calmly. "Okay, come home. We'll figure this out together." Harper drove home with tears streaming down her face, her mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. What if James had legal rights? What if he could take Lily away? What if the courts decided a biological father was more important than the man who'd actually been raising her? She found Evan waiting on the porch. The moment she got out of the car, he pulled her into his arms. "I can't lose her," Harper sobbed. "Evan, I can't lose my daughter." "You won't," Evan said firmly. "We won't let that happen." They spent the evening calling lawyers, researching custody laws, preparing for a battle Harper had never imagined she'd have to fight. The lawyer they consulted was reassuring. James had no legal rights after abandoning Lily for 3 years, and establishing paternity after this long would be difficult and expensive. But the possibility still hung over them like a storm cloud. "What if he doesn't give up?" Harper asked that night, lying in bed unable to sleep. "What if he keeps pushing?" "Then we fight," Evan said. "Whatever it takes, we protect our daughter." "Our daughter," Harper repeated softly. "Not just mine. Ours." "Ours," Evan confirmed. The lawyer called James's lawyer the next day with a clear message. Harper was not interested in contact. Lily had a stable home with 2 parents who loved her, and any attempt to force visitation would be contested vigorously. For 2 weeks, they heard nothing. Harper barely slept, jumping every time the phone rang, convinced each call would be James or his lawyer or someone trying to take Lily away. Then, on a Friday afternoon, the lawyer called. "He's dropping it," she said. "James's lawyer called this morning. Apparently, once they explained the legal reality that he'd have to prove paternity, pay back child support, and likely wouldn't get more than supervised visitation, he decided it wasn't worth the effort." Harper's knees went weak. "He's not coming for her?" "He's not coming for her," the lawyer confirmed. "You're safe. Lily's safe." Harper hung up and immediately burst into tears, relief and rage and residual fear all pouring out at once. Evan found her on the kitchen floor and gathered her into his arms. "It's over," she said. "He's gone. He's really gone." "You're safe," Evan whispered. "Lily's safe. We're okay." That night, after the girls were asleep, Harper pulled Evan out to the back porch. The spring air was cool and smelled like rain, and the city lights twinkled in the distance. "I want you to adopt her," Harper said. Evan stared at her. "What?" "Lily, I want you to legally adopt her. I want your name on her birth certificate. I want her to be yours in every possible way." Harper took his hands. "You've been her father for months now. You deserve to be recognized as such. And she deserves to have that security, to know that you're not just the guy who lives with us, but her actual legal father." Evan's eyes filled with tears. "Harper, are you sure? That's permanent. That's forever." "I'm counting on forever," Harper said. "I love you, Evan Brooks. I want to marry you and build a life with you and raise our daughters together, both of them. I want Lily to have your name and June to have mine. I want us to be a family in every sense of the word." "Did you just propose to me?" Evan asked, half laughing, half crying. "I think I did," Harper said, smiling through her tears. "Well, that's not fair," Evan said. "I was planning to propose to you. I have a ring and everything." "You do?" "I've had it for 2 weeks. I was waiting for the right moment." Evan pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. He'd apparently been carrying it around, waiting. "But I guess now's as good a time as any." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond. Nothing flashy, nothing extravagant, just beautiful in its simplicity. "Harper Lane," Evan said, his voice shaking. "Will you marry me? Will you let me be Lily's father officially? Will you build this messy, imperfect, beautiful life with me?" "Yes," Harper said. "Yes to all of it." Evan slid the ring onto her finger and they kissed on their back porch while the city hummed around them and their daughters slept safely inside. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying and laughing in equal measure. "We're getting married," Harper said wonderingly. "We're getting married," Evan repeated, "and I'm going to adopt Lily, and June is going to keep calling you Ma, and we're going to be a family." "A real family," Harper said. "The realest," Evan agreed. They got married on June's first birthday, a year to the day after that plane ride that had changed everything. It was a small ceremony in their backyard, just family and close friends. Lily was the flower girl and took her job incredibly seriously, concentrating fiercely as she scattered petals down the makeshift aisle. June was supposed to be the ring bearer, but mostly just chewed on the pillow. Harper wore a simple white dress, and Evan wore a suit that Madison had once told him made him look handsome. They'd talked about it the night before, whether it was appropriate for Evan to wear something connected to his first wife to his second wedding. Harper had been adamant. Madison is part of your story, she'd said. Part of our story. Wear the suit. Honor her. She'd want you to be happy. So he did. When Harper walked down the aisle, her aunt on one side and Mrs. Patterson on the other, since her mother couldn't be there, Evan felt his chest crack open with love. She was beautiful and strong and everything he'd never thought he'd have again. The vows they'd written themselves were simple but profound. Harper promised to love Evan and June, to build a home filled with laughter and honesty and grace for imperfection. Evan promised to love Harper and Lily, to show up every day even when it was hard, to honor the people they'd lost while embracing the future they were building. I promise to stay, Evan said, his voice breaking. I promise to be the person you can count on, the one who doesn't run when things get difficult. I promise to love our daughters, both of them, with everything I have. I promise to let you in, Harper said, tears streaming down her face. I promise to trust you with my heart, even though I'm terrified. I promise to build a life with you that honors where we've been while embracing where we're going. When the officiant pronounced them married, their daughters cheered louder than anyone. Lily shrieked, "You did it, Mommy!" And June clapped her hands with delight, even though she had no idea what was happening. At the reception, really just a barbecue in their backyard with folding tables and string lights, Evan's father gave a toast that made everyone cry. "A year ago, my son was barely surviving," he said. "He was a shell of himself, going through the motions of life, but not really living. And then he met Harper. And slowly, piece by piece, she helped him remember what it meant to be whole. Not by fixing him, because Harper had her own broken pieces to carry, but by being willing to be broken together. By choosing each other every single day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard." He raised his glass. To Evan and Harper. To their daughters. To building beautiful things from broken pieces. To broken pieces, everyone echoed. Later, as the sun set and the party wound down, Evan found Harper sitting on the porch steps, watching Lily and June play in the yard. He sat beside her, taking her hand, the one with the wedding ring now sitting next to the engagement ring. "Hi, wife," he said. "Hi, husband," Harper said back, grinning. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Harper admitted, "and happy, and grateful, and scared that I'm going to wake up and this will all have been a dream." "It's real," Evan said. "We're real." Harper leaned her head on his shoulder. "My mother would have loved this. She would have loved you. She would have cried through the whole ceremony and then gotten drunk and told embarrassing stories about me at the reception." "My wife would have too," Evan said quietly. "Madison. She would have been happy for us. I really believe that." "Me too," Harper said. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughters play as the sky turned pink and gold. Lily was showing June how to blow dandelion seeds, both of them giggling as the white fluff scattered on the breeze. "Do you think we'll mess them up?" Harper asked. "Our daughters? Do you think they'll end up in therapy talking about their parents who got married after knowing each other for 5 months?" "Probably," Evan said. "But I think they'll also grow up knowing what real love looks like. The messy kind. The kind that shows up even when it's hard. The kind that chooses family over blood. That builds homes out of broken hearts. That refuses to let tragedy be the final word." "That's a lot of pressure," Harper said. "Good thing we have each other to share it," Evan replied. The adoption went through in August. The day the judge signed the papers making Evan legally Lily's father, the little girl sat in the courtroom in her best dress, swinging her legs and humming to herself. When the judge asked if she understood what was happening, Lily nodded solemnly. "Evan is going to be my real dad now," she said, "forever and ever." "That's right," the judge said, smiling. "How do you feel about that?" Lily looked at Evan with her whole heart in her eyes. "I feel happy. I love Evan. He's the best dad in the whole world." Evan couldn't speak, could barely breathe. He just nodded and blinked hard against the tears. After the hearing, they went to the cafe, the place where it had all started, where Evan had finally worked up the courage to walk through the door. Maggie had closed it for the afternoon so they could celebrate privately. She'd made a special cake that said, "Congratulations to the Brooks Lane family," in careful frosting letters. "The Brooks Lane family," Harper said, reading it. "I like the sound of that." "Me too," Evan said. They ate cake and took pictures and let the girls run around the cafe making joyful noise. At one point, Evan stepped outside for air and found himself staring at the spot where he'd parked his car all those months ago, too afraid to go inside. Harper joined him, sliding her arm around his waist. "What are you thinking about?" "About how close I came to not doing this," Evan said. "To never walking through that door, to spending the rest of my life driving past but never stopping." "But you did stop," Harper said. "You were brave enough to try." "We both were," Evan said. That night, they put both girls to bed together, their daughters, both of them, legally and emotionally, and in every way that mattered. They tucked in Lily first, who insisted on a story about dinosaurs who went to space. "Good night, Mommy," Lily said, hugging Harper. "Good night, Daddy." It was the first time she'd called him that. Not Evan. Not like a dad. Just Daddy. Evan's vision blurred. "Good night, sweetheart. I love you." "Love you too, Daddy," Lily said, already yawning. In the nursery, June reached for both of them, wanting both parents to rock her to sleep. They took turns singing, Evan starting with the lullaby Harper had taught him, Harper finishing with a song her mother used to sing. June's eyes drifted closed, and her breathing evened out, and she looked so peaceful, so loved, so completely secure in the knowledge that she was safe. "She looks like Madison when she sleeps," Harper whispered. "She does," Evan agreed, "but she has your smile. Did you know that? When she really laughs, that deep belly laugh she gets, she looks exactly like you." "I hadn't noticed," Harper said softly. "Well, she does," Evan said. "Our daughters are going to be a perfect mix of all of us. Madison and your mother and you and me, all the love and loss and hope we carry, it's all going into them." "That's beautiful," Harper said. "That's family," Evan replied. They stood in the doorway of June's room for a long time, just watching their daughter sleep, marveling at the life they'd built from the wreckage of their old ones. Then they went to their bedroom, the one they shared now, the one that felt like home in a way neither of them had experienced in years. "I'm happy," Harper said, sitting on the edge of their bed. "Is that allowed? Am I allowed to be this happy after everything?" "You're allowed," Evan said, sitting beside her. "We're both allowed. We've earned it." "Have we, though?" Harper asked. "Sometimes I feel like happiness is something that happens to other people. People who haven't lost as much as we have." Evan took her hand. "Harper, we lost everything. And we survived. And then we found each other and built something new. If anyone deserves happiness, it's us." Harper leaned against him, and they sat in the quiet of their bedroom, listening to the sounds of their house settling, their daughters breathing peacefully down the hall, the whole world continuing to turn while they held each other. "Thank you," Harper whispered. "For what?" "For being brave enough to walk through the door, for staying, for loving me and Lily even when we were both disasters, for building this with me." "Thank you for reaching out your arms on that plane," Evan said, "for seeing me, for giving me a reason to hope again." They kissed, soft and slow, and it felt like a promise renewed, the same promise they'd made to each other on their wedding day, the same promise they made every morning when they woke up together and chose this life, these people, this imperfect, beautiful family. The years that followed weren't perfect. There were hard days and sleepless nights, and moments when grief ambushed them both. Evan still cried on Madison's birthday. Harper still fell apart on the anniversary of her mother's death. They fought sometimes, hurt each other's feelings, struggled with the normal challenges of raising children and building careers and maintaining a relationship. But they also laughed more than they cried. They built traditions, Saturday morning pancakes, annual camping trips, bedtime stories that got more elaborate every year. They watched their daughters grow, Lily starting kindergarten with Evan walking her to class on the first day, June taking her first steps while Harper cheered. They made their house a home, filling it with photos and artwork, and the beautiful chaos of a family that chose each other. On June's second birthday, Evan found Harper in the backyard early in the morning, sitting in the grass and staring at the sky. "You okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. "I was just thinking," Harper said, "about that day on the plane, about how close we both came to never meeting. If June hadn't been crying, if I hadn't stood up, if you hadn't taken that flight. So many tiny choices that led us here." "Fate," Evan said. "Or luck," Harper countered. "Or both," Evan said. "Maybe it's both." Harper looked at him, this man who'd walked into her cafe 8 months after a plane ride and changed everything. "Do you ever regret it? Taking a chance on me? On us?" "Never," Evan said without hesitation. "Not once. Even on the hard days, even when we're fighting or struggling or barely holding it together, I've never regretted choosing you." "Good," Harper said, smiling, "because you're stuck with me now." "Stuck with you," Evan repeated. "I like the sound of that." Inside the house, they could hear the girls waking up. Lily's voice asking June if she was excited for her birthday, June's delighted babbling in response. The sounds of their family, their life, their future. Harper stood and pulled Evan to his feet. "Come on, Daddy, we've got a birthday to celebrate." They walked inside together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Because they'd survived the worst. They'd walked through fire and loss and grief so deep it should have destroyed them. But instead, they'd found each other in the wreckage. They'd built a family from broken pieces. They'd learned that love didn't end with death. It just transformed, made room for new people, expanded to fit all the joy and pain and hope that life required. And as Evan swept June into his arms, while Harper hugged Lily, as their daughters laughed and their house filled with morning light, Evan thought about a plane ride 8 months ago, about a crying baby and a desperate father and a stranger who'd reached out her arms and changed everything. Sometimes love didn't arrive with fireworks or grand romantic gestures. Sometimes it arrived as a stranger on an airplane, offering help when you needed it most. Sometimes it was quiet and unexpected and born from shared grief rather than shared joy. But it was real. God, it was real. And standing there in his kitchen with his wife and daughters, Evan Brooks understood something he hadn't known a year ago, that broken people could build beautiful things, that second chances existed, even after tragedy. That family wasn't just blood. It was choice and commitment and showing up every single day, especially when it was hard. They'd survived. And more than that, they'd learned to live again, together. And that made all the difference.